I'm Philalitheia. I am walking home in the first snow of the year, the first real snow, white snow. We've been getting winter mix, a little bit of frozen rain, sleet, but snow. Now I am going to go back to my tent and I am going to begin reading a book. I have a book that I want to read. That book, I don't remember what it's called, so I'm not going to spoil it before I get settled in. I don't know how long it is, so I don't know how long I'm going to read it. I don't know how whether I'm going to finish it tonight, but I am going to begin it tonight. I'm going a little bit later than I have been because ooh, good job, PetSmart. Well done. A+. Taco Bell hasn't put out salt yet, but PetSmart already has the sidewalk salted. Well done. Well done. You have to have it down first. If you have it down before the snow, then before ice and snow, then the sidewalk won't freeze. But if you put it down after, it takes longer to fall. Well done. Yeah, the Dollar Tree doesn't have salt down. Well done. Management's on point. Hey, Sippin', what's up? But anyway, I'm a little bit later than I have been the last few nights because I sat and watched Monday night. Well, until like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then I played some 7 Days to Die. I recorded a couple of days of 7 Days to Die. I played a Horde night. It went really well. That's exciting. And I'm going to go back to the tent and I'm going to decide whether, because I'm a day late on recording Schedule 1, whether I record Schedule 1 tonight or I stay on schedule and record 7 days, or whether I'm modifying my schedule and tonight I'm going to play Dragon Age Origins. Or something else. I'll figure it out. Eric pops in and out. The last I talked to Eric, well, you don't need to be sorry to hear about me and Rach, but, anyway, the last I talked to Eric, he was working really hard on a video series for his channel. But he comes through all the lives and says hi. Look at that. Rach and I worked it out. She did what I said she was going to do. She listened to the video. She listened to me speak. She watched my body language. And she took the opportunity to look past what she had been feeling and what she had been thinking to see me. So we've already worked it out. We were working it out by my talking about it, because like I did mention, and I'm not rubbing your nose in anything, or I told you so. I did say that it was going to work out one of two ways. She was either going to listen to me or she wasn't, and that sounds, at first I think she was thinking that I was being defeatist, or that there's an ugly finality there. But I explained that the one thing is very narrow and the other thing is very broad. Women need a firm hand on the reins. It is snowing, it's beautiful. Women need a firm hand on the reins, and every woman is different. Every woman is different, but in that they need a man with a firm hand on the rein is something that they all share in common. And now how that manifests in their lives and the degree to which they're satisfied with the men they have, that's individual. And yes, they need a firm hand on the reins. And the reins don't have to be attached to a bit in that woman's mouth. But they need a man who's got his life under control. No, I didn't have to whip her. I didn't have to hurt her. I didn't have to lash out at her. Just patient with her. I'm keeping warm just fine. Hands are a little cold right now because they're out of the pockets of my jacket, so I can hold and manipulate the phone. No, that's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Yeah, it's snowing pretty good too. It's accumulating. The ground is already frozen, so it's all just gonna stick. It's all gonna stick. So we're gonna wake up, or they're all gonna wake up in the morning with the sun. I'm gonna be going to bed around the time the sun comes up, but they're all gonna wake up to a couple inches, especially if it starts to pour real heavy. For those of you who don't know, who haven't heard me talk about this, I manipulated this path on purpose so that I would be able to walk into the dead plant matter here as this hill freezes, because that mud is slick, and if I fall, there is a non-zero chance I am never able to get back up on my own power ever again. So that's that. Alright, let's turn this back around. I don't need the light anymore. You can't see me. Ay, ay, ay. You can't see me, but here we go. Didn't really think about it being this dark down here. It doesn't feel this dark because the light is reflecting up from my eyes. It's reflecting up off the snow, so I can see just fine. It's pretty cool. Alright, I'm home. I did that exactly right. That's gonna work and hopefully displace the... You can't see it. I should have left that on so I could talk about it and show you what I had done. But the way I wrapped the tarps over the top of my tent is gonna displace the weight so that it doesn't all rest on the spine of my tent. Some of it is gonna displace off to the tree that I let grow up behind my tent. Oh, please. Uh-oh. Why is my lamp not there? Because it's right there. Alright, here we go. I do love the snow swap. Give me just a second. I didn't anticipate my lamp falling. Here we go. Okay. And now I really do want to try not to introduce too much snow to the tent. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. Put that in there. There we go. Okay, what am I seeing? Yeah, it's cold. Well, for sure. Okay. I got to get out of these shoes. Alright, I have not practiced my "it's snowing" routine yet, clearly. Alright. Shoe one. Shoe two. Alright. I'm glad it's been cold. I'm glad it's been real cold the last couple of weeks. And that this isn't just a surprise snow that's gonna melt away. And more importantly, I'm glad that I've had time to acclimate to it just being fucking cold before it snowed. Whew. Okay. Oh, I was like, man, it feels really empty on this left side for some reason. What's that about? I haven't emptied my backpack. All right. Shake the snow off my head, yeah, for sure. Okay. I don't know what that within cells interlinked business is from, but a lot of people have been saying it to me lately. It sounds like something from Blade Runner 2049. What do you mean I'm hardcore? Unless you weren't talking to me. We love you. Well, you wouldn't catch yourself, you wouldn't be caught out here in this cold? Well, I've grown to enjoy it. I missed it. This summer, I missed it real bad. There were nights, days where I lay or sat, walked, pined after the cold. Missed it. Missed the sound of the wind as it screamed through the trees last winter. Winter is a different kind of cold this year. Last year it came sweeping down from the north. That's what I thought it was from Blade Runner. That's what I thought. I don't know why they're saying it to me. I don't know why a Blade Runner meme is running around the internet in 2025. Whatever. I actually give a shit. I thought that I recognized that they're calling me, they're either calling me an AI or they're calling me a replicant, which is fine. Hey, Jamie. I've been living out here since September of 2024. Bob, probably I'd rather play chess with Elvis. I have significantly less in common with the Doors. The Doors are Californians. Elvis is at least a Southern boy. I grew up in North Carolina. We could at least bond over sweet tea. And an adoration for Latinas. Fairly. I don't know. I don't know why it would be unsafe. It hasn't been unsafe. I would like to believe that it's not at risk of becoming unsafe. I haven't been in any risk I couldn't manage for about a calendar year. Yeah. The week surrounding Halloween last year was the last time I was at risk of anything really dangerous. Risk of losing limbs or whatever, appendages, digits. Not allowed to have fire out here, Jay. And by the time a Temu anything got to me, I wouldn't need it anymore. And I'm not cold. I could strip down to my base layer right now if I wanted to. Yeah, for sure, Sippin'. For sure, Sippin'. I remember seeing you around a lot. I mean, over a long period of time, is what I'm saying. I don't know that I have any particular memories. But you're a frequent flyer for sure. Yes, I got big fluffy socks with hearts on them. And the brand has Marilyn Monroe's face on it, so yes. That happened. They're comfortable. And they're warm. And these ones are about soaked through. For sure, Sippin', and I do value your loyalty, my friend. For sure. Lots of come and go. Lots of come and go. But that's okay. I wrote an essay about it about this time last year. They come and they go, and I remain. And that's okay. It's okay. And here you remain as well, Sippin'. I value that. I appreciate that. With any luck, as I've been saying, I'm sure you've heard me say it a million times, with any luck, I'll be able to get the OGs all together and thank them properly with a round of beers and a stage and a big thank you. We just have to get there first. We have to get there first, and then I can get you all to come out of the woodwork and tell stories. Tell stories, so I can properly remember you and properly thank you. So absolutely, Sippin', thank you. Absolutely. Rach and I are fine now. We're better. She's saying the things. She's saying the right sorts of things now. Hey, Cole, what's up, buddy? I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot better. It's been a very difficult month and a half. But I'm doing a lot better. A lot better. She's gonna be annoyed with me because I didn't buy anything off, because people like to just be disruptive, Cole. Hey, yeah, absolutely, Bob, but all of us are. All of us are unique and all of us are irreplaceable. Absolutely. Thank you for saying so. Um, I want you to be reassured that I've never questioned that. But thank you for putting it there because it being there means that anybody who reads it uh, will also thank you will also know that about themselves. Okay, Amanda, how to what degree do you want me to answer that question? What do I think about the Antichrist? Because I think a lot of things about the Antichrist, um, and it really depends. It depends on your interpretive framework what it means. The Antichrist. The Antichrist isn't really a thing in Scripture. It's a thing in the culture and in the mythology. But an Antichrist is something that Jesus laid out. I do my best, Dan. Thank you for your kind words. Hey, there's my guy. What's up, Austin, man? How are you doing, man? It's good to see you. Yeah? Yes, God will keep you in line if you allow Him to. Am I scared or am I ready? I'm not scared. I used to be very anxious, um, very concerned that the coming end would get here before I could do anything to prevent it or before I had the skill sets necessary for what comes after. But I'm no longer scared. Life of Pi, the tiger, and for anybody that's triggered by cigarette smoke, I am deeply sorry. You're invited to look away, but I haven't had a cigarette in a few weeks and I want one, so I'm gonna have a cigarette. Hey, I'm glad to see you, Osty man. I really am. And you have nailed your second impression, my friend. Thank you. You don't have to be a frequent flyer, but just that little bit of effort to say what's up. I thought I'd like to make a good impression on you. That right there, that fills my heart with a particular kind of joy. Um, Thank you. I hope you take that into other areas of your life. It's good to see you, and I am doing well. And what's up is that I have a new lease on my creative life. So I'm gonna chill here with you guys and have a cigarette, and then I'm gonna read a book for the woman I love because I know that if she doesn't like the book itself, she will at least like the performance. Reconciliation is good stuff. You take care too, Austin, and you're the man. Thank you. Really, that was cool. That's why we lift all them weights. Hey, thank you for that, Mundo. I smoke Marlboro NXTs. I really like the I really like the Marlboro Black tobacco. I don't know what it is. It's probably swept up off a shop room floor somewhere. But I really like the black. I really like the black tobacco, and I like the menthol in the. I like I like whatever the menthol flavor is that's in the little pop thing. The midnights and the ice are good, but for some reason the menthol is better in this. Um, yes, Amanda, I'm staying warm just fine. I hope I don't even look like I'm shivering. My hands are exposed. I'm just fine. It's snowing. You might be able to hear it. I'm fine. totally comfortable. Um, but the immortality, the immortality that you might be asking me about, where like a human lifespan never ends. I think it's a kind of hell if it does happen, and I think that the kind of immortality that I'm talking about is afterlife, where you're just not forgotten, where you're remembered into perpetuity. Thank you for your well wishes, 860. That's very nice of you. I got a pack of Rolo candies that I'm gonna let freeze. I could put them outside the tent. That would speed that process. Yeah, Life of Pi. You asked me about that. Is that the one with the tiger on the raft? It's a book too, right? I know how the cigarette looks. It doesn't look great on me right now. It's okay. We'll fight through it as a team, and it'll be all right. You have, Torellia. You were the first ever. I don't hear it every single day. I bet if you sit here long enough, you'll see 10 people say it in the next 30 minutes. You smoke Newports, Amanda? Well, Ronell, if your example of Islam is meant to be a positive example, you have done an absolutely terrible job. That's cool. What I meant to say, Amanda, I didn't finish, is that I didn't finish my thought. Uh, Newports are a fine cigarette to bum off somebody, but I've never bought a pack of Newports. I've never bought a pack of Newports before. Hey, what's up, Tricky? It's tricky to rock around, it's rock around time. It's tricky. It's tricky, 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 tricky. Yay! That startled me too. I'm sorry. Do I dream? Are you asking me literally or figuratively? No, thank you, Renault. His name is probably Raoun. It sucks, Watchtower. It sounds like the lesson that you were meant to learn the first time didn't stick. Well, you did bring me a zombie virus. It's tricky. These guys would show up without you, buddy. I'm not worried about it. I'm not. I don't think I even seem agitated. It's good to see you, pal. I know somebody asked me if I dream, and I didn't catch whether they're being figurative or literal. An out of body experience. I've never had an out of body experience in the traditional sense that maybe you're looking for, like a near death experience, or like where I was able to look down and see my body. But I've had many dissociative experiences, which were effectively out of body experiences. And when I was a boy, I used to be able to dissociate my consciousness up out of my body. But no, I've never had a traditional. Don't like loud music. I've never had a traditional out of body experience. You don't understand life anymore. Well, I don't know you very well. Yeah, dissociative experience, not on drugs. Yes. Um, I don't remember what it's called right now. It's not dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative identity disorder is what you understand as multiple personalities. But I don't remember what it's called now. But my depression used to be so bad that I used to dissociate from my body, so I could feel my consciousness separate from my body, and I could watch myself, and I could experience my body autonomously going through the motions of my day. Yeah, Bob, that would scare me a great deal. No, it wasn't delusion. It wasn't delusory. It was depressive. It was peaceful for you. Mine were not peaceful. Mine were mine were death. Indeed, tricky. Binaries that are sliding scales once you orient a perspective between them. I wasn't hallucinating. Dissociation and hallucination are different things. That's why they're different words. NGD mining. And so you're going to try to diagnose me incorrectly one more time. Exactly one more time. The out of body was peaceful for you. I'm a little bit jealous. Mine were not peaceful. My dissociative trances weren't peaceful. And hallucination is where you believe that you are seeing things that aren't actually there. I wasn't seeing things that weren't actually there. I wasn't seeing anything unusual. I was aware of myself autonomously going through my day. I was aware that I didn't have to think and tell my hands pour that coffee, or I didn't have to tell my legs walk to that place. I was observing myself living. This guy right here, I don't know why he's still here. He's wrong about everything. And he's going to tell me to get over something that happened to me, an experience that I lived through 7 years ago. I'm not dwelling on it. I was asked a question directly, and I answered it. Thank you, Dan. I lived my life differently than most young people. I decided that if I was going to survive to 30, I was going to be an interesting old person. I don't know what that means, Tricky. Are you inviting him to get the insult out quicker? That's, I would say, when I say That's really interesting, or that sounds really cool. What I mean is, you could talk about it, but I don't know what kind of questions or how to comment on it in a way that might seem more meaningful. Because to me, that would be terrifying and decidedly unpleasant. Well, that's what we're here for, Dan. We're not sitting by a fire, but we are sitting in a tent in the snow. And I'm kind of really grateful for this blanket right now because it is there is a barrier of cold air on the other side of it. Yeah, you don't always need to know the facts. That's right, Tricky. You can learn the facts, um, but the truth is another beast. Uh, yeah, the truth is another entity entirely. That wasn't flipping anybody off. Hey, thanks, Dan. What does the EDC stand for? Do you want to talk about that? I don't know what it means. Patterns. That's right, pattern recognition. Yeah, I used to get really excited when we were kids, or when I was a kid, for the end of grade tests or standardized tests that had pattern recognition, like, 135 blank, 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 whatever, 15, 17, 19, finish the pattern. I used to get really excited for those because those were puzzles that I always enjoyed solving. I don't know why I would want to be mindful of that, Billy Bob. Everyday carries? Are you asking me what? Oh, everyday carry. Understand. That's what EDC stands for. Cool. Thank you, Dan. No, the high IQ, the high IQ ban for law enforcement is because people with high IQ tend toward narcissism and psychopathy. Actually, narcissism is a psychopathic trait, so they tend toward psychopathy. High IQs tend to they tend toward rule manipulating behaviors. So that means that among law enforcement, that high IQ people are going to know how to get around they're going to know how to get around the regulations to do law breaking behaviors. And so effectively, if you have stupid cops, you have people who are too stupid to break the law. Unless you're just, but just and justice are words. I am just, yes, but also because of my high intelligence, I am able to know like what I can get away with. And hello, Jarchoko, what's up? J Archoko. I don't know how you want me to pronounce that. J A. No, not a. Maybe it's Jar Choco. I don't know. What's up? How you doing? It's good to see you around. I feel like there's a question that I'm leaving on the vine. Oh, justice. Justice is it's a word, it's a term, it's a philosophical concept that still lacks a definition after 2,500 years or whatever philosophers. So the problem with people who think they're just is that they can convince themselves and other that they're more just than they are if they're highly intelligent. Going through with your nuggets? Heard that, Jar. How's that going? Overseer into officer? Yeah, that's the thing about highly intelligent people. It's tricky. I looked into this. Um, I looked into what I'm about to talk about. I'm gonna try not to talk about it too much. But between the 1970s and the early 2000s, the CIA was deeply involved in monitoring highly intelligent children as they grew into adults. And so people like Ted Kaczynski monitored, and then they were manipulated in universities. And what we learned by the time No Child Left Behind was implemented is that highly intelligent people tend high intelligence tends toward psychopathy. And so psychopathy isn't a diagnosis. It's a trait scale, okay? And really what it means at the far end of the scale, we're kind of like if we're talking about like you were talking about scales earlier, like hot cold, right? So at the far end of the psychopathy scale, and really what defines psychopathy in general is a willingness and a taking pleasure from doing harm, doing things that are harmful. And so what highly intelligent people tend to do is pat themselves on the back for getting away with hurting people or doing things they know they're not supposed to do. No, I'm not a doctor. And so what happens is highly intelligent people will decide, well, like Dexter, right? They'll decide, okay, well, I'm just. I'm more just than the American legal system, so I'm going to go be a vigilante with my law enforcement position. Lost to the Mavs at home. Did the rookie play? The first round pick? I'm too trait open to be in the positive side of the psychopathic scale. Yeah, there are sweet spots in the middle. Yeah. Most people are trait neutral. That's cool. You don't have to know, Jay. You don't have to know, man. Most people are trait, just like somewhere in the middle. I don't know what that is. Ball. So, for example, like with intelligence, average means the average person, which means that on average you're probably less than average. Well, yeah, your therapist isn't really inclined to teach you this stuff. Um, so this is what I did instead of going to therapy as a young person. And so average intelligence means that most people are trait average, for sure. And so to me, diagnosis is liberating because it gives you, agreed, Bob, the truth is not for sale. Um, Diagnosis to me is liberating because it gives you something to work on, right? Like if your leg hurts and you don't know why your leg hurts, you can't target what to do to make it not hurt, right? But if you go to a doctor, you get diagnosis, you go through rehab. Now you're going to get a plan to rehabilitate and heal the injury, right? And as much as therapy is called therapy, it's not called rehabilitation for a reason. They're gonna therapeute, they're gonna treat, but they're not there to heal. You say amen, amen, sipping. The truth is not for sale. Yeah. And so for me, diagnosis, like knowing and confirming that I have an intermittent explosivity disorder, pathological demand avoidance, not disorder, diagnosis, and bipolar type 2, knowing that I have, and other, but knowing that I have these diagnoses, it gives me something to focus on. And it gives me an interpretive framework for when my life isn't going the way I want it to. I'm glad to hear that, Midwest Mike. Welcome. Thank you for the kind words. It's not going to stay normal for long. I am going to begin reading, probably here within the next 15 minutes. But you guys have been engaging me with good questions and well-meaning conversation, and I'm a compulsive truth teller. Yeah, we all do. We all do, Bob. I hear what you're saying. Never mind. I forgot what I had said. Um, and so knowing, for example, that I have intermittent explosive disorder, and I find myself about to blow up over something, and I don't know why. Now I know why. And so I can either say, hey, I'm about to blow up. I have no control over this. You need to fucking quit it, or I need to leave right now, or I'm going to hurt someone's feelings and damage your respect for me. Or I can let it happen and I can apologize later and I have a good reason. Not that I have a diagnosis, that I have something that I am working on. Or that I have a neurological disorder that I have no control over. OCD, explosive temper, PTSD. Yeah, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder because I grew up in extreme childhood abuse. So I went undiagnosed for a really long time, and I found worldview and self-talk and internal ways to cope with what I was experiencing, and then I went through a 5-year, 4-year, really, maybe only about 3-year period of my life. I went through this extended period of my life that stripped away my normal coping mechanisms, and then I found myself in therapy and with diagnoses. And so, a large part, I live in this tent so that I can know for certain when I'm in a normalized stress environment that I can handle myself under extreme stress. And I'm glad to hear that you're stronger for it, Tricky. Because Nietzsche is wrong. Everything that we survive doesn't make us stronger. It might make us metaphorically stronger, or it might make us stronger in ways that don't have anything to do with our body. But all of the damage we suffer does affect our long-term maximum health. If you want to talk in like a video game metaphor, and if you'll forgive me for using it. Yeah, me too, Tricky. When I was a kid, I used to do a lot of things that deliberately hurt me in small ways, so I would adapt to the pain. Yeah, self-isolate to feel a sense of control. Yeah, absolutely, Bob. That's a man thing. For anybody who doesn't know, any women out in the audience who don't understand why their man just disappears sometimes, it's because men self-isolate. It's a biological trait. Yeah. Yeah. If you have male friends, women, if you have men in your lives, brothers, fathers, husbands, boyfriends, co-workers, you want to allow them to isolate. But if you notice that the isolation is prolonged, you do want to intervene. For sure, Midwest. I do not wish that mine were different. Yeah, Bob. I was kicked out of the house at 18. My mother kicked me out at 18. And I've cohabitated with a woman for most of the years between 18 and 38. The last 2 years and COVID were the only times that I spent truly alone. I don't like to be, I didn't like to be that completely alone. And I haven't actually enjoyed the total isolation very much at all. But it's been restorative. I don't know about rehabilitative, but restorative for sure. Agent of Chaos. Yeah, mine too. Mine too, Bob. Mine too. My mother was the devil. Thank you guys for entertaining this talk, and for those of you who have been around, who've got to know me a little bit, and who are curious but don't want to ask. Things with me and my lady are fine. I told you I had it under control, and I did. And we we got the cart back behind the horses. So we're back on the same team again. I appreciate your companionship, Bob. Thank you. And yeah, I really do I really value that you guys are taking the opportunity to take the Thanksgiving spirit into the week after. The Wall, the Pink Floyd, I have not. No. Yeah, thank you guys for. I love all these thank yous. I came here to make a space where we could tell one another thank you and mean it and my it's hard to say this and not understood is tricky. I haven't seen that either. It's hard to say this and not sound totally hokey and like I don't mean it, but my truly greatest joy in life is when uh, you guys are loving on one another more than you're loving on me. That's really beautiful. God really does work in mysterious ways. So thank you guys. The enemy learns how to talk and walk like a friendly, but it turns out he's a wolf. Yes, it's tricky. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's called an intelligent, organized psychopath. We have to live with ourselves. That's right, Bob. That's right. Walter Matthews. That's funny. Your name is almost Walter Matthau. We do have to live with ourselves. There's that idiom, wherever I go, there I am. And that haunts a lot of people. That haunts a lot of people. That wherever they go, no matter where they live, no matter what vacation they go on, no matter how much they drink or eat or whatever, wherever they go, there they are too. But it's okay, Tricky. You don't have to protect me. In Murphy's Law, I used to call it Vincent's Law. Yeah. Whatever can go wrong will happen to Vincent. When I was in high school, I used to say that. No, I don't think I'm better than you. I might be more adept than you at things, but I am 100% sure that there are things that you are better at than I am. Even if there are things you think I'm expert at. You're more creative. There you go. You're probably more visually creative, I bet. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, always moved and then were surprised in the end to find themselves in the same place emotionally. Why have my emotions from the previous place caught up to me? Why did they come here too? And it's like because the central apparatus that organizes them, manages them, presents them to you is your body. It came with you. Yeah, it's you. Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are. And so what I learned how to do as a young person, and this isn't patting myself on the back, is I just learned to really like myself. Like you're always going to be here, so do things that you like, right? Speak in a way that you like. Read the books that you like. Listen to the thinkers that you like. Watch the movies that you like. And then by the end of high school, I started saying, okay, well, what else can you like? Can you watch that thing that you know you won't like and find something in it that you do like? Hello, Irina. Is it Irina? Um, Snow-covered Russia. Yeah, it's snowing here in Ohio too. I'm sure that you have it worse comparatively, and I'm not complaining. I'm hey, that's great. I'm glad I didn't pronounce it wrong. Just so everybody knows, I'm in a really good mood, and I am gonna read. I am gonna read from this, but I'm in a really good mood. It is sustenance. I agree. I agree, Bob. I'm doing great, Irina. I'm in a really good mood. I'm in a really good mood. Able to orient my life in the direction I want it to be. I have made so many new acquaintances. Uh, I'm in a really grateful and good place. South Carolina, that's cool, Bob. I grew up in North Carolina. I lived in Asheville, North Carolina as an adult for a few years. It's all good, Tricky. Your brother lives in North Carolina? That's cool. That is cool. Here, let me actually cue this. I'm gonna read a book. I want to read a book. I haven't done it in a while, and I think that this one would be serendipitous that I came across it. That's not actually how you use that word. Full text. All right. Thank you guys very much. Yeah, for engaging me creatively, emotionally, etc. Thank you very much. My planned material for night is I want to read a book. The book that I want to read is called The Peregrination of Three Young Sons of the King of Serendip through the efforts of M. Cristoforo. Armeno translated from the Persian into the Italian language from the late 1400s, 1557. This is a story translated from Persian into Italian in 1557, and we're not going to be reading the Italian. We are going to be reading a recent. Yeah, uh, Emily. Um, we're going to be reading a recent translation, and I do really like to read the stuff at the beginning of these books. Hey, that's great, Dan. That's great that you guys are going to be enthusiastic with me. Like a view of another world. Yeah. Um, that's why I like to read the prefaces and in this case the imprimatur from the original authors of these old books because this is them speaking in their own words to people in their own time. And yeah, it's like looking through window or a looking glass darkly, playing Pokemon and listening to this, that's thank you, the Mutsia. That's what I'm here for. I provide much better audio than video. But yeah, we're gonna read an old book um, that is meaningful in a way that maybe she doesn't understand yet, or maybe she will never care about, to the woman I love. So this is dedicated to you, Rachie. Imprimatur to Pope Julius III. On his own accord, etc., when, as we understand, our beloved son Michael Tremezzino, through Venetian publishers, had recently submitted a request to us to print for the common good of all scholars, at his own expense, various Latin and Italian works, translated from Latin and Spanish into Italian, that have not been yet translated and intended to be printed, being uncertain about such works which would, as with others, if printed without his permission, result in great injury to him. Therefore, we are willing to indemnify him and grant said Michael the privilege to print the aforementioned works. This might actually be from the Pope's own hand. To print the aforementioned works, which up till now have not been printed, for a period of 10 years from the completion of those works. In particular, their printing and selling by anyone without his permission is forbidden, either in their shop or their sales houses, except when printed by said Michael, or they can be licensed, granted the privilege and allowed to print them. This is how copyright worked in 1557. We prohibit each and every faithful Christian, both in and outside Italy, especially booksellers and printers, under penalty of automatic excommunication in the lands of the Holy Roman Emperor or Empire and its direct and indirect dependencies. Violators will be subject to a fine of 200 gold ducats to be imposed by the Apostolic Chamber, as well as loss of books as a consequence. These penalties shall automatically and without any further declaration be incurred at any time when a violation occurs for a period of 10 years after the printing of said works or the accounting thereof. This is so funny. So this is very recently after the printing press has hit Europe, right? And so this is exactly internet piracy. If you pirate this book, we will kick you out of Europe. And we'll take all your books and we'll charge you $200. Do not pass go. Do not collect. That's funny. Sorry, it's not funny, but it's cool. Said works, until now, have not been printed either in Latin or in Italian without the express permission of Michael himself during the mentioned 10 years. This includes printing, whether by themselves or by others, besides said Michael's printing and venturing to print and sell it, having it sold, or displaying it. If necessary, the same Michael may ask assistance against disobedient and rebellious violators from all our venerable brothers, the archbishops and their vicars. So what he's saying is that priests, because they can, priests and clergy, because they know the art of copywriting, basically. If he finds out that any priests or clergy are stealing his book by copying copies of it for themselves, he also gets to come after you for those. This is funny. I love this. Assistance may involve legal remedies from apostolic authority and from the secular branch as well. Moreover, because it is very difficult to extend it for all countries, we decree apostolic authority to copies or examples of actual printed works with full and equal judicial force, regardless of the original location, to what we have ourselves. We absolve them from any censorship, so their own signature will suffice. And the present appropriate accusation in Aci Campi Floris and inside the doors of the Apostolic Chancellery residing within this beloved city, affixed by means of a proclamation, cannot be ignored, and also if it is published by means of affixed and fastened bills and by itself with temporary printing. And to everyone, as if it were communicated personally, we wish to express that any opposition whatsoever is null and void. The content of all the foregoing and notwithstanding its creator should not be contrary to any other apostolic regulations. Okay, so if anybody would like an example of what's very different about the 16th century from the modern world, is that the president can't say, hey, if you fucking read this book, sorry, if you steal that fucking CD, I will come find you personally and you don't get to fucking fight back. That's the difference. The Pope gets to put it in writing that if you fucking steal this book, he's coming after you personally, and you don't get to mount a legal defense for it. That's the difference. Trump cannot do that to you. That's funny that I stumbled on that, but it's almost not over. They did an afterword here that I think is by our translator. No, it's not from our translator. In the year 1550, from the birth of our Lord, the 8th indiction, the 23rd day of the month of October, in the first year of the Holy Pontificate in Christ, our Father and our Lord Julius, by the divine providence Pope III, the postscripts were attached and published by myself in the aforementioned locations. Jacob Caratus, cursor. So the Pope's personal cursor wrote this. Maturinius, chief cursor, requested on June 25, 1557, that it be granted to Michael Tramezzino that no one else but he or someone else authorized by him may print or have printed in this city or in any place of our lordship or elsewhere printed to sell during the next 10 years the work titled The Peregrination of the Three Young Sons of the King of Serendip, translated from Persian into Italian. However, he is obliged to observe everything pertaining to the field of printing. That's hilarious to me. Okay, and now we move on to the dedication. Divine and Pope don't really mix, yeah, for sure. Do I know my ancestry? No. Norman French, Scots Irish, for sure. But other than that, not really. Dutch, a lot of Dutch. Okay, dedication from our author, Michael Perezzino, to the very illustrious Mr. Marcantonio Giustiniano, son of the late very illustrious Mr. Girolamo Proctor of St. Mark's. St. Mark's is the cathedral in Venice. In these hot days, most illustrious and most expert Lord, for amusement, I have translated, with the help of a very dear friend of mine, this work from the Persian language in the Italian language. The thought was far from my mind of having it printed for publication. Nevertheless, overcome by the persuasion with which he loves me greatly, I allowed myself to have it be brought to light. But because I have been made to understand that here too, as in my own country, there are detractors and slanderers, unable to demonstrate any talent in the world for being productive, that they, in order to be believed, aggrandize themselves by blaming others. I know that I need to find some remedy, and anyway, securing my book from their tongues, which I have easily had to do, dedicating it and presenting it to your most illustrious lordship, perpetual advocate for all who are virtuous. I am certain that your name, which is so famous and illustrious because of its remarkable qualities, will greatly frighten those slanderers. Besides, I will also get another benefit from it, for which I am so obliged, to repay you for the many courtesies and loving kindnesses, and to show for the small fortune from my grateful soul. Dedicating my present effort to you will at least ensure the gratefulness of my soul that otherwise I will not be able to do, knowing that I am really beholden and obligated to you. So, let me reverently beg you to deign to accept my small gift, which I give you from my soul, out of which I do it. And gratitude for that and for many other courtesies, which I have received from you at various times, of all that weak subject I know, I promise your illustrious lordship, and in this city and in any other part of the world, where I may find myself, never to find myself tried of extolling the many praises that you deserve, and to raise your illustrious and honored name to heaven. And I kiss your hands reverently on the first day of August, 1557. To your illustrious sir, your most obliged and affectionate servant, Cristoforo Armeno. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't that author, the Michael wasn't our author. The author, I'm sorry, was the printer. This is amazing. I love this. Oh, this is great. Okay, now we're on to our foreword. This is also not particularly long. Always be praised, our Lord, creator of 7 heavens, of 4 elements, and of every other thing, which on earth is seen, creator of man, who is superior to all other animals, to whom not only intellect was given to contemplate his divinity, but also language, with which he is able to express gratitude for having received this benefit. I, Cristoforo Armeno, a poor sinner from the city of Taurus, in my country, heard many times from various people that in parts of Francia there were a large number of noble men who were gifted with great intellect, which could easily be seen from the beautiful and wonderful things found near where they lived. So one can easily understand that I greatly desired to see this country, the inhabitants of which were mostly Christian, so I could learn the rites and principles of the religion of Jesus, which I greatly desired to do, being a Christian myself. Therefore, with God's help, I made my way towards Francia, and the first place I reached was the city of Venice. Okay, so, I don't know where Taurus is. I'm assuming it's in the south or maybe east of Italy. I'm not sure. But when he says Francia, he might mean Germany. I don't know when people stopped calling Germany East Francia. So that the Franks were German and they conquered France. And so it was West Francia, and then it just became Franks. But Germany used to identify as Frankish, not Germanic. Anyway, sorry. I don't know these geographies. I know where Venice is. I just wanted to say that about Francia. Now let me find where the hell I was. Because in the whole world no other city like it is found, that is Venice. It is believed that it could only have been made by the hand of the Lord. It is located on the sea, and you can go everywhere by land and waterways by means of uncovered boats called gondolas that take you wherever you want to go. The palaces and residences usually have 2 entrances, one overlooking the water, where all the things the family needs arrive by boat. The other is on the street, where everyone enters and goes as they please. And also, they don't decorate the street-facing doors. They decorate the canal-facing walls. I think that's really cool. And that's still a thing. In this city, no other animals can be seen except for very beautiful and well-proportioned men and women, while in our own cities we are constantly annoyed by wandering donkeys and camels. The streets are very clean and paved, and you can see many churches and beautiful palaces of great value. So if there are camels where he's from, this book is called it's got a silly name, but it's known as The 3 Princes of Serendip. We're still in the foreword, but I love you too, the Mutzla. Thank you. He must be from somewhere in the Middle East if there are camels. Sorry. The streets are very clean and paved, and you can see many churches and beautiful palaces of great value. There are also many hospitals and separate quarters for women and men. They are all admirably taken care of and are dressed in white, and their doctors, who continually take care of the sick, are being provided with everything. Here, justice is excellent. Everyone behaves well so that no one suffers abuse, and each one strives as much as he can to follow the commandments of God. Life is under the law, and those who administer justice are men of much knowledge and gifted with great kindness. Besides, there are many dwellings where poor foreigners are accommodated free of charge. I can attest to this faithfully. For over a 3-year period, I have continuously resided in a room that suits me without having to pay anything. I don't remember ever having seen a city more lenient or more compassionate to the poor. Thank you very much for that, Tricky. As I love the beautiful customs and rituals, I have completely forgotten my own country, and if sometimes the idea of returning there crosses my mind, it seems that my nature immediately dissuades me. Having known here very learned men in every profession, and for the many courtesies I have received in their city, I wanted for their entertainment, and with the help of a very dear friend of mine, to translate from my own language into Italian a peregrination of three young sons of the kings of Serendip. I believe that because of its beauty, many readers will be delighted by it, and I hope they will be grateful and acquire it. That's actually really beautiful. If you didn't fully understand what he said, here, I want to read this sentence because it's an antique way to use the word want. But he said, having known their very learned men in every profession, and for many courtesies I have received in their city, I wanted for their entertainment. I wanted for their entertainment. And what that means is that in his heart, what he wanted to do was provide the professional, educated people. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, it's all good, Tricky. I'm here to do both. Um, he says, I wanted for their entertainment. And what that means is that um, he wanted to entertain them. He wanted to return to them. He felt a lack in his reciprocation to the hospitality of the entire city. And so he wanted to tell a story for these people that they would like, and that he hoped that they would go out and buy and really like. And that they would be grateful, not really like that they would buy, and that they would be as grateful to him for coming to their city with the story that I'm about to read for you, from somewhere in Persia, the Persian Empire, that they would be thankful and grateful that he came to their city and stayed there for free, and that he contributed to the beauty of living in their city. And that's awesome. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to read that, because that's why I do what I do. This guy, he and I are of the same. We're of the same, not profession, but uh, intellectual religious tradition, and that's really beautiful. And just so everybody knows, as we go into the prologue, this is dedicated in the exact same way that he dedicated it to the king, or the one of the nobles, one of the consul of Venice. This is dedicated to my love, Rachel. So thank you guys for being here for this. And now we begin at the prologue. The peregrination of three young sons of the king of Serendip. And now I don't know what peregrination means, but I believe that peregrines kind of meander across the sky. So I think it kind of means the meandering narrative. And Shaggy Dog stories are meandering stories with no beginning, end, or real connective tissue. So what we might be getting is the first Shaggy Dog story of which I am aware, and that would be fucking cool. So here we go, prologue. In ancient times, in the land of Serendip in the Far East, Serendip, for those who don't know, and now I'm not going to remember, is Sri Lanka. Serendip is Sri Lanka in Persian. In ancient times, in the land of Sri Lanka, Serendip, in the Far East, there was a great and powerful king named Jafar. I know this story. Who had 3 sons, and knowing that he had to leave them mighty lords, and as a wise and loving father, he decided to endow them with all the qualities that princes require. He therefore searched diligently in his entire state to find several men who specialized in various sciences, and assigned to each one a spacious room, suitable to his position, to which no one else had access. A science in this case is a profession. Persia is now Iran. That's correct. He committed to them the care and discipline of his sons, assuring them that the best thing they could do for him was educate them so that they could be considered his worthy sons. Having been given the task, having been given the task of disciplining the young men, the tutors exerted themselves, each to his own field, to satisfy the command of their lord, so that in a short time the sons, who were highly intelligent, became wise and knowledgeable in the sciences, and in all those things required of princes, surpassing anyone of their age and condition. One day, when the king was informed, he could not believe
that they had made such great progress so quickly, and he decided to test them himself. Not long thereafter, hello, Hart. Not long thereafter, he called his eldest son to come to see him and spoke to him as follows. You know, my son, how long I have borne the burden of such an empire, and the government of such a great kingdom. And now I have always, and how I have always been careful, with all my might, to govern my subjects and vassals with as much love and charity as I could, and to obey as much as possible the commandments of God. Now that I have arrived at such advanced age, it is right that after having taken care of the well-being of my subjects and of the provinces of my kingdom for such a long time, I devote the short span of life that is left to me to think of myself and the salvation of my soul. So basically what he's saying is that I've lived a long time, I've done a lot of things, and now I'm thinking about retiring to a convent to live out the rest of my days in meditation and prayer. Therefore, I have decided to retire to a nearby monastery, where I can peacefully reflect upon my sins and the offenses made against my soul, and do the greatest penance I can to obtain the mercy of the Lord God and implore him to forgive all of my offenses. This is something that was done. When we talk about, people think, especially when we're talking about the Renaissance, the 1500s, when we talk about what Protestants think that Catholics believe as regards you're allowed to live a life of sin, what the Protestants fail to remember or fail to mention is that you are also expected to retire into a monastery and pray for the people that you had harmed in order to get to old age. That is a thing. Sorry, continuing on. I wanted to call you before me, and because you are my eldest son, to command you to succeed me in the government of this state and my kingdom. Above all, I ask you to be willing to receive your brothers as your own sons, and to take care of them and embrace them with all the love which is appropriate. Now, this person is probably Persian, maybe a Christian from the Persian Empire, but probably he's culturally Persian, and it's important that you know in Persia, this is not how succession was done. This is how Christians in the West did it, but this is not how succession worked in Persia. The way succession worked in Persia is that all the sons, when the dad died, when the king died, all of his sons were a free-for-all bloodbath, and the survivor got to be king. No surviving other sons. No other sons could survive in order for a king to be crowned. That's how the Persians did it all the way up until the end of the Ottoman Empire. It's probably still how they would do it in Iran and Afghanistan if white people didn't manage those states so closely. So what he's doing here, where he's saying, I need you to treat your brothers like your own sons, that's because they're Persian. Don't kill them. Inherit them with estates. Because that's how the Europeans were supposed to do that. They weren't supposed to kill their brothers. Actually, by the 1500s, they were supposed to do that. At the beginning, the father was supposed to break them up equal estates according to their inheritance, and who their mother was, and what they had done up to the point that the father retired. But moving on, I'll move on. Above all, I ask you to be willing to receive your brothers as your own sons, and to take care of them and embrace them with all the love which is appropriate. Moreover, I ask you to be equally just to everyone, and that in all your actions, with the divine majesty as your guide, to govern the subjects and vassals of your kingdom with charity and love, and especially those that are poor and miserable, and to welcome always and to honor in every way possible the aged and the sick, and to punish the guilty and wicked with all your might, as required by the laws and the orders of his divine majesty and of this kingdom. The wise and prudent son very much admired these words, and their delivery from his father, and after he had given him due reverence, he answered him by saying, Sire, I have very well understood the decision and your advice which you have imposed on me, and which I have to fulfill. But because I know that it is reprehensible, while you are still alive, to govern and occupy your empire, and I also know that no eye of such greatness can be found that surpasses the eyebrow, and that no splendor can be found like the sun of your reign. Thus, I do not judge it to be proper that others should govern and possess your kingdom. Therefore, I am ready to carry out promptly whatever you command me, but never as long as you live ought I to succeed you to the throne. And may our Lord give me many more long and happy years to live. Give you many more happy and long years to live. When it comes to pass that the Lord God will call you back to him, then I will take charge and command, and following the wise and sacred remembrances of you, and as far as I can, I will strive, for fear of his divine majesty, to rule and administer it in justice. The king was very comforted by this response of his prudent son, and he was happy that this first test had let him know that the wise and modest prince possessed the necessary virtues. But for the time being, he concealed the contentment of his heart and dismissed his son, and wanting to have the same experience with the other two, he called the second son to him right away, and using for him the same words as for the first one, he received the following answer: Sire, may your reign be long and happy, and may our Lord grant you the age of Noah. Please do me the favor by telling me how the ant coming from a tiny dwelling could possibly rule and govern a kingdom. For what else am I but a weak and tiny ant? How could I accept the administration of such a kingdom? Then, should my brother, your eldest son, who is alive and healthy, not rightfully be your successor? Thank you, Tricky, if I didn't thank you for those. The prompt and wise response from the second son satisfied the king immensely, and he thanked the Lord God humbly and with a pious heart for having made him the father of such a worthy son. And after he dismissed him, he asked the youngest son to come into his presence, and he also spoke to him in the same language which he had already used with the others. To which the young man began to answer in this way: How can I, sire, to whom the holy God has granted me many years of happy life, tell me, how can I, still being a child, accept such a serious and important burden? I feel like being a small drop of water, and your empire is like a huge and endless sea. How could I possibly know how to administer such an empire? But because you see me as being so young, you mock me, and ask me to do such momentous things, and you make fun of my embarrassment. However, sire, while I am still a child, I am intelligent enough, thank you God, to know my strength and my power, and I realize that you are making fun of me anyway. Because even if it was not the case, do I not have two older brothers to whom you would have entrusted the heavy load of the empire? The king greatly admired the shrewd answer of the boy, and he was infinitely consoled, finding him to have such a sharp intellect. And thus, having assured himself by the conversation he had held with his three sons of the progress made by them in the sciences, and after hearing the wise and prudent answers they had given him, he decided that to make them entirely perfect, he would go out to see the world, in order to learn from the different customs and manners of many nations, as well as through experience what they had already mastered through their readings and the lessons of their tutors. And he called them the following day, pretending to be seriously angry, and showing that he was very upset, because none of them wanted to obey him in accepting the care of his state. He spoke to them using these words: Since none of you has shown a willingness to carry out my command, which I never could have believed would happen, make sure that, within a week, you will be beyond the borders of my empire. For as you are disobedient and wicked children, I do not want you to dwell in it any longer. The sons were deeply saddened by this incident, and having understood their father's wishes, they immediately set off on a peregrination. Having left his kingdom, actually, you know what? I am connected to the internet. Let me find out what this word means. Peregrination means a journey, especially a long or meandering one. So, I guessed correctly. Yeah, Pops is playing games. I love this, Dan. Thank you for being bought in. The sons were deeply saddened by this incident, and having understood their father's wishes, they immediately set off on a peregrination. Having left his kingdom, they arrived in the state of a great and powerful emperor named Baramo. There, on the road not far from the imperial city, they encountered one day a camel driver, from whom one of the camels had fled, and who asked them if by chance they had seen it on their way. Because they had tracks and paw prints of such an animal, they thought to tell him that they had found it on their way. And to make it more believable, as they were prudent and wise, and had seen many clues of the lost camel, the eldest brother told him immediately, "Tell me, brother, was the camel you lost not blind in one eye?" To which the camel driver replied that it was true. Next, the second son said, "Oh, tell me, besides being blind, wasn't it also missing a tooth in its mouth?" The camel driver affirmed this. Then the third son added, "Would it, perchance, also be lame?" And the camel driver confirmed this as well. "We certainly have met this camel on our way, not long ago," said the three brothers, "and it has been a while since we left it behind." The camel driver was very happy to hear that. He thanked the three brothers and set out on the road they showed him to seek his camel. He walked 20 miles but could never find it. Then, tired and sad, 20 miles is about 2 days. Then, tired and sad, he turned back, and the next day he found the young men not far from the place where he had left them. If he's hoofing it 20 miles, that's a really good road. They were seated near a clear spring. You can average about 10 a day. Well, I guess armies maybe average about 10 a day. Maybe people could do 20 back then. Then, tired and sad, he turned back, and the next day he found the young men not far from the place where he had left them. They were seated near a clear spring and were eating. Actually, I'm pretty sure that 20 is on a horse. This guy's hoofing it. This guy is moving quick. Anyway, and so, lamenting to them that he had not found his camel, he said to them, "I have traveled a good 20 miles down the road you showed me, but it was in vain, and I got so tired, because I was unable to find the animal, and although you have given me great hints, nevertheless, I can't believe you haven't made fun of me." In response to which the elder brother said to him, "From the information we have given you, you can judge whether we have made fun of you or not. But so that you don't have an unfavorable opinion of us, I give you this other piece of information. Your camel was loaded with butter on one side and with apples on the other. And I can tell you," added the second brother, "that there was a woman on the back of your camel. And the woman," said the third brother, "so you know that we are willing to tell you the truth, I tell you, was pregnant." Having heard these words and led to believe, because of the many true clues they had given him, that the young men had stolen his camel, which he had not been able to find on the road indicated by them, the camel driver decided to go to court and accuse the young people of having stolen his camel on the way. He therefore appeared before the judge, and the three brothers, seriously accused of having committed the theft, were sent to prison. This even reached the ears of the emperor, who was annoyed because he had used the utmost diligence so that one could travel through his kingdom safely and without fear of highway robbers. This is why, quite disturbed, he ordered the young men to be brought into his presence the next day, and having also called the camel driver, he wanted, in the presence of the young men, to be informed by him of all that had happened. Having obtained a full understanding of the facts that the camel driver was certain detailed information about the lost camel given to him by the young men, he addressed them, greatly disturbed, with the following words: "You have now heard the accusations made by the camel driver against you, and because of the information you gave him, I know for sure that you have stolen his animal, since he was unable, notwithstanding great efforts, to find it on the road you indicated to him. At this point, I could rightly condemn you to death for this crime. Nevertheless, since I am naturally more inclined to leniency than to severity, I have decided that before you are put to death, you recover the stolen camel forthwith. Unless you do this without delay, you will be shamefully put to death early tomorrow, as is befitting for brigands." I love this. The logic is so illogical, but also the emperor is obviously in a bad mood about this. He obviously can't figure out how the lawsuit is wrong. And so he says, all right, fuck it. These guys are foreigners. I'll just kill them one way or the other. But also, since they knew where the fucking camel was, if they just get them to bring the camel back, it doesn't matter whether they kidnapped it or didn't kidnap it. This problem is fucking dealt with. I love this. It's very Saturday morning cartoon. The young men heard the words and the decision of the emperor, which was rather painful. But nevertheless, they were consoled by their conscience and their innocence, and answered him as follows: Sire, we are 3 wayfarers on a peregrination, which we are undertaking for no other reason than to see different countries and the wonders of this world. Now, I want to jump in real quick right here. The author, I like that the author has them instantly understand their father's real message because they're supposed to be wise. I like that. Sorry. When we arrived in your kingdom, we met not far from this city the present camel driver, who asked us if by chance we had encountered on the road a camel which he had lost, whereas we had not seen the camel. Nevertheless, we saw many indications of the lost animal, and replied to him jokingly that we had encountered it. And in order to make him believe our words, we gave him the information about his camel, which the camel driver mentioned to you. As it so happened, the information was true, and because he was unable to find his camel on the road, we indicated to him that we were unfairly accused of having stolen his animal. He then took us into your presence and wrongfully accused us, as you can see. It's interesting that they're saying that they were joking. So maybe they were being sarcastic. Maybe they were joking on this guy. And so maybe we can think of what happened in this story as this guy approaches 3 people that they've never seen before. And he's like, hey, have you seen my camel? And they were like, oh, yeah, totally. And we know details about it that we possibly couldn't. But they all happen to be real. But how did this guy lose a camel that has butter and whatever he said, potatoes on it, and a woman? There's a woman who's pregnant on the back of this lost camel. That's not a lost camel. That's an escaped pregnant woman. He's looking for his wife. I'm sorry, this is very funny to me. I think this is very funny to me. The guys continue. This, we are telling you, is the truth. And if it's found otherwise, we will accept whatever death you please, however harsh and cruel it may be. When the emperor heard the words of the young men, he could not be persuaded that the 6 indications given to the camel driver could perchance all have come true. And he said to them, I don't think that you 3 are prophets, but 3 highway bandits, murdering people you meet on the way. And the reason why I believe this is that none of the 6 clues you gave the camel driver about his lost camel was wrong. Therefore, he made them go back to jail. Oh my God. Like a legitimate comedy of errors. Meanwhile, it so happened that a neighbor of the camel driver, going about his business, found the lost animal on the road. He recognized it and took it, and when its master, who was his neighbor, returned, he handed it over to him. When the camel driver became aware of his mistake and considered that because of him the young men found themselves in great danger, he hurried immediately to the emperor and explained to him that his camel had been found. Not the woman. We're not worried about the woman on the back of the camel. I love this. I'm sorry. I love medieval humor, because what they do is they hide the authors of these stories, the composers of these stories, antique, but especially medieval. They would hide details like this, like the woman on the back of this camel being also pregnant and wandering in the desert near Sri Lanka in the far east of Europe, to see who's paying attention. That it's missing an eye, or blind in one eye, it's missing a tooth, it's lame, it's got items that it's selling on its back. These first 4 details are escalating in strangeness, but possible. But that it has a pregnant woman on its back stretches the imagination of the possible, that no one is concerned for the woman. I'm sorry, I love this. I am not negatively criticizing it, that no one is concerned for this woman. And yes, poor bastards. I'm sorry, I'm going back to it. If I were reading this for pleasure for myself, I would take a moment and I would put it down and I would have this exact sidebar. The minister carried this out without delay. Oh, I'm sorry. After the emperor heard what had happened, he was very distressed about having imprisoned the unfortunate young men, since they had not committed any serious crime, and he ordered them to be released from prison forthwith and brought before him. The minister carried this out without delay. He first apologized to them for having them imprisoned because of the unfair accusation by the camel driver. He then wanted to hear how they could have guessed so much detailed information about the lost animal and insisted they tell him. Right. Thank you for laughing. Because the young men wanted to satisfy the emperor anyway, the eldest one said to him, "When I realized, sire, that the lost camel was blind in one eye, since as we walked down the road where it had passed by, I saw on one side where it had been walking that the grass was all yellowed and eaten, and on the other side the grass was intact and healthy." Okay, so there is like a Sherlock Holmes detective mystery story in here. Like there is a whodunit here, a how they did it. It's not just going to be silly nonsense. Sorry. The grass on either side. So on one side the grass is intact and healthy, and on the other side it had been eating it. So I believe that it was blind in one eye, with which it could not see the area with the good grass, because it would never have left the good grass for the bad grass. The second brother followed by saying, "Sire, that the camel was missing a tooth was clear to me, because on the road I found with almost every step, when I looked down, so much true grass that it must have come out of the empty space of a missing tooth from a passing animal, so it was drooling grass. And sire," said the third brother, "I figured that the lost camel was lame because I clearly saw the tracks of 3 feet of the animal, while I noticed that the 4th foot, as far as I could tell from the indications, was dragging behind." The emperor was very amazed about the intelligence and foresight of the young men and wanted to understand how they could have guessed the other 3 signs. He dearly asked them that they would also tell him those. I am also, I like to drag out a good mystery. I am also on the edge of my seat to know how the fuck they know there's a pregnant woman on the back of this camel. Anyway, in order to fully satisfy his questions, the first brother said, "Sire, I noticed that the load of the animal consisted of butter on the one side and honey on the other side, not obviously not potatoes, because of the length of a mile. Because for the length of a mile, I saw on one side of the road an infinite multitude of ants, who like fat, while on the other side a great number of flies, who like to search for honey." Okay, so one of the sciences is clearly the 16th century version of biology. So clearly the sciences include Aristotle. This is cool. "And I guessed that there was a woman on the camel," said the second brother, "because I saw near the tracks where the camel had been kneeling also the shape of a human foot, which seemed to me to be that of a woman. However, it could have been that of a child. I ascertained that because I saw that there had been urination near the foot, and when I put my fingers in the urine and wanted to smell it, I was immediately overcome by a carnal concupiscence, which I believe came from the foot of the woman." Okay, so what happened is he saw her piddle spot, her footprint, her feet prints, her piddle spot, and he stuck his finger in it and smelled it, and it gave him a boner. So that's how he knew it was an adult woman. The third brother said, "That this woman was then pregnant was clear to me from the handprints visible on the ground, which were there from helping to lift herself up to her feet with her hands after urinating." This is amazing. I love this. The world was very different back then. You've got this team of 3 observational so this book is a demonstration of Aristotelian deductive reasoning, which is all Shakespeare is. Not Shakespeare. I've been saying Shakespeare, haven't I? Sherlock Holmes. All Sherlock Holmes is deductive reasoning for the Victorian at-home audience. This is deductive reasoning for the educated professionals of Venice circa 1557. This is fucking cool. This is cool to my interest, my personal interest. This is how you introduced Aristotelian deductive reasoning to people who've never heard of it. You show 3 people doing deductive reasoning in stages of 2s. You repeat the experiment over and over and over again, so they hear it and they see it and they're along with it. This is cool. I've heard this story in a great lectures course, and it's just coming back to me very slowly. This is really cool. Okay. The emperor endlessly admired the words of the young men, whom he esteemed for their incredible ingenuity, and he decided to treat them courteously in all respects and honor them in such a way as their remarkable account merited. And he had a sumptuous room prepared in his own palace. He kindly begged them to stay with him as long as they wished, assuring them as best he could of his great esteem for their quick and high intelligence. Because the young men saw themselves so truly honored by such a great prince, they were infinitely grateful for his great courtesy, and they proved very ready to satisfy his every desire. So, the emperor himself accompanied them to the prepared room and treated them regally from now on. Never a day went by without the emperor discussing various subjects with them for at least 4 hours. He was very unguarded with them and delighted by their quick intelligence. Sometimes he would even hide in a small neighboring room, hearing them always talk of other things, and then left being delighted. He gave these young men the same food that he would eat, and one day when dinner was prepared, he had them served a fat lamb among many other very delicate dishes and a flask of precious wine. And he withdrew into the small room to listen with much delight to their reasoning. Now, as the young men were seated at the table and started to eat the lamb and to taste the wine that the emperor had sent them, the eldest brother said, "To be honest, I think that the vine from where this precious wine came had its roots in a burial site. I don't think that it could be otherwise." "And as for me," said the second brother, "they could not make all the wise men of the world believe that this lamb that has been placed before us today had not been nourished on the milk of a bitch." And the third brother added, saying, "Brothers, I feel very sorry about something, of which I became aware this morning. And this is what I was able to understand from some indications, that this gentleman, from whom we have received so many courtesies, has had one of his counselor's sons killed for misdeeds. And the father is thinking about nothing else than that by making his lord die, he can exact revenge for his son's death." Wow. The emperor understood the reasoning of the young people very well. He was very disturbed by the words of the third brother. He entered their room and, concealing the pain in his heart, he said to them, "Please, what were you discussing?" To this the young men responded with reverence that, for the moment, they weren't discussing anything, and that since the meal was over, they wanted to leave the table. But as he insisted on the fact that they should share their thoughts with him, and he ensured them that before he entered he had heard them, they couldn't in any way hide the truth, and they told him everything in an orderly manner, as they had done while they were dining. And after he dwelt with them in this way for quite a while, he returned to his room and immediately made the man who was in charge of his kitchen come and questioned him about the area of the country where the wine had been made, which he had sent to the young men in the morning. Having heard everything, he went to the owner of the vineyard. When he came before him, he asked if that vineyard which he managed had originally been a vineyard, or if it only recently had been covered with buildings. I don't know exactly where that cut me off, but he understood, that as the emperor, that, while currently it was a vineyard which produced precious wine, 200 years before it had been a cemetery with graves of dead bodies. In view of having established and verified that what the young man had said was true, he also wished to ascertain what the second brother had recounted. And as for the account of the third brother, it was not necessary that anyone questioned it, knowing himself that the son of the counselor had been killed for his misdeeds. And having ordered that the shepherd of his flock should be called in, he asked him with what type of pasture he had fattened the lamb, which that day, tender, had not been fed with pasture, but only with the milk of the mother. But the emperor saw from the fear in the shepherd that he had not told him the truth, and he said to him, "I really know that you are lying. Therefore I affirm to you that if you do not tell me now the obvious truth, you will instantaneously die a cruel and bitter death. I pray thee, sire, replied the shepherd, if you please give me life, I will really tell you everything. After he promised him that, he said, Sire, when the lamb was still very small and when its mother was grazing one day in the countryside and had strayed somewhat, it was taken by a wolf. And because I happened to have a bitch, which I keep to guard the herd, and while at the time had given birth to a litter of puppies, I did not know that I could find a better way than letting the little lamb feed on the teats of the bitch. It was bred that way, and when I judged it to be food worthy of you, I killed it and sent it to you right away and delivered it to your major domo. That's kind of sad. No, I'm not reading from the Bible. I'm reading a book called The Peregrinations of the Three Princes of Serendip. It was translated from Persian into English in Persian into Italian in 1557. That's kind of sad that his life could be in danger for that. The emperor, who heard this, started really to believe that these young men who had such a high and worthy mind were gifted with prophetic virtues. He sent the shepherd away and returned to the young men with these words, Everything that you have told me I found to be true, and I am led to believe that if there is such a noble and high virtue in you and the art of guessing, 3 other men like you cannot be found in the world. But please tell me, what are the indications you had at the table today which enabled you to imagine the things you told me? In reply, the eldest brother said, Sire, I was aware that the wine which you have brought us today had its source in the cemetery, because as soon as I had drunk the first glass, which always makes a man's heart cheerful and happy, I was instead overcome by a deep sadness and melancholy. Since it affected me that way, I had judged that the wine could only have originated in a cemetery. And, added the second brother, after I had eaten a few bites of the lamb and had a taste of salt and stuffed foam in my mouth, I realized that this lamb had only been fed with milk of a bitch. And because, sire, the third brother followed, I realized that you also greatly desired to hear from me. How I could have noticed the thoughts of your counselor, which are full of bad hatred against your imperial person. You have to know that, reasoning with you the day before yesterday about the punishment of the wicked, when we were before you, I saw your counselor's face change color, looking at you maliciously, being thirsty. He asked for a drink of water, which usually refreshes the liver, and therefore I concluded that he had received no lesser offense from you than that you put his son to death. The emperor, who found that in each case the young men had spoken the truth, was greatly disturbed by this, and replied, I am absolutely certain that the facts are exactly as you have told me, and that my counselor, other than in his mind, does not reveal how he can kill me, to take revenge on his son, who I rightly condemned to death because of his misdeeds. But how can I force him to confess this thing to me from his mouth? Therefore, I think that because of the great torment I may bring upon him, he will never say a word to me. Thus, since I do not have the confession from his own mouth, I will not be able to convict him. However, because I know that you are highly intelligent, a solution for this situation can be found. Hello, no, sir. Hello. The solution, sire, answered the young man, is available if you wish to follow my advice. As I have understood, your counselor has a concubine, whom he loves very much, and to whom he entrusts all his secrets. Now, you should let this woman know that you are dying of love for her. And knowing that she is beautiful, she will easily be made to believe that you wish her to give you her love. Since you are her lord and master, I think that you have the power to have her come to you immediately, and in this way, I am sure that you will be able to assure yourself from his own mouth of all the machinations which the counselor has in mind against you. Yep, bring the woman there, let him know about it, and he'll tell you in a rage. The emperor liked the advice of the young man very much and found a prudent and smart female messenger, and pretending to fervently love the woman of his counselor, he opened up his heart fully to her and commanded her to communicate his message. So she carried out his order and found an opportunity to be with her and let her know what was on her lord's mind. He told her that he could easily have her by letting the counselor die, or having her one day be kidnapped by his ministers, but that this seemed to be the act of a tyrant, and not that of a fair or humane prince. He did not want to use any violence and asked her affectionately to consent to him willingly. When the woman of the counselor heard the words of the messenger, she begged her profusely to communicate on her behalf to the king infinite gratitude for the love he had for her, and to tell him that, being the woman of such low status, she greatly admired that he had lowered himself to love her. Nevertheless, she was ready to please him in all respects, but being so much guarded by the counselor, she only knew of a single means to meet, which she would reveal to her only if she swore first of all that she would disclose what she told her to none other than the emperor her lord. No, thank you, Dan. Hence, the messenger made the solemn oath of silence to her, and the woman started to speak as follows. Our prince, the snow might actually be causing problems as far as my connection. He is planning another rebellion that will lead to his death. He has prepared a poisoned drink and is waiting for an occasion to invite him to a banquet and will kill him with that drink, and I alone am aware of that. And while I had in mind to let the emperor in any way know about the serious wrongdoing, nevertheless I never had the opportunity until now. Therefore, you will reveal to him all these facts and tell him that if, at the end of the banquet which the counselor organizes for him, he is offered a crystal cup with a drink, he must not accept it at all, for it will be laced with poisons. Instead, he should have him drink it, which will punish him for his misdeed and kill him. This will free me from the hands of this vicious traitor, and he will thereby always have me for his every pleasure. Wow. I love how the characters of this book are actually intelligent people. The messenger understood very well what the counselor's concubine had told her. She took leave from her and immediately returned to the emperor and repeated to him everything in an orderly fashion. Because in those days the emperor had won a great victory against a powerful and great king who had tried to occupy his kingdom, he envisioned that this was an opportunity to express his joy about such a victory by presenting gifts to the principal ministers of his court, among whom the counselor had the highest rank. He believed that the actual presentation would give him the occasion to try what he already had in mind. Thus, he gave him a precious gift, and when he had the occasion to be with him a few days later, he invited him to a regal and magnificent banquet. When he went into the counselor's room, he was received by him with a great feast and joy, and was given many precious and great gifts. He sat down at the table, which was prepared with very delicious foods. There were music and songs to celebrate the banquet. Standing up from the tables, the counselor with his own hands presented to the emperor a fragrant drink in a crystal cup with the following words. Sire, since you, high and great lord, have deigned to honor the banquet of your humble servant, I have also with all my power made an effort to find food and dishes worthy of you. Therefore, I had this potion prepared, the like of which cannot be found anywhere in this world. It would take too long to mention the many virtues which it possesses, and there is nothing that refreshes a man's liver more than this drink. That is why I want to offer it to you, your majesty. Oh, I love this. I don't know, I have no way of knowing, but our author, that Cristoforo, I wonder if he chose this story because it has a cup and a banquet, because that's what the Holy Grail was in 1550 in Italy. It was just a drinking cup and not associated with Jesus yet, not to the degree that it is now. The counselor was very troubled by these words of the emperor, and feeling that his plan would have been in vain, he replied immediately, saying, Sire, because this is such a rare and precious drink, I know it is not befitting to myself, but to your imperial majesty. But the emperor replied to the counselor, this is like high drama. Like, this is legitimately high drama. In a movie, this would be gripping stuff. This is gripping stuff to me. That's why I'm dragging it out. Like, like, we know, right? This is good suspense. We know there's poison in that cup, and we know that both characters know. In fact, this might be where they got the idea, this moment, Might be where they got the idea in Princess Bride. Yeah, dun dun dun, right? Yeah, like this is the moment. Sorry. The emperor replied to the counselor that he cared for him and loved him as he loved himself, knowing full well the love and reverence which he had always borne him. And he said, I know your need, and taking this potion away from you would not be worthy of my affection for you, for I am certain that it can bring a great benefit to you, while on the other hand it could be of no benefit to me, for I am not suffering from an overheated liver. Ah, evidently they thought that hate or rage were in the liver. Now, when the counselor saw the insistence which with his lord asked him to drink the potion that he had offered him, and fearing that his betrayal had been discovered, he said, Sire, I myself have fallen into the pit in which I wanted others to fall. But because I always knew that you were naturally inclined to clemency, I want to believe that you will forgive me for my error. I love this. Because I have given you a very important warning for your life. If you have condemned someone's son to death, you should not allow his father to converse in your court. You know that you rightly killed my son for his misdeeds, and that notwithstanding the great affection and many gifts you have showered me with afterwards, I could never alleviate the great sorrow in my soul. I could never see you without my blood boiling, nor without thinking of killing you. And while I have received endless benefits and honors from you, and you have rightly sentenced my son, I have nevertheless unjustly prepared this poisonous drink for you, which seemed to me to be a way to avenge myself for the death of my son. The emperor, who understood the cold-blooded objective of his counselor, spared his life, but banished him immediately from his presence and designated all his goods for the benefit of the treasury. He made him understand that he had to be beyond the borders of his kingdom within a 3-day span. He was infinitely grateful to the Lord, to God the Lord, who had saved him from such a grave danger, and he regally rewarded the woman who had discovered the treachery, and married her to one of his important barons. After the emperor had returned to the young men and had told them all what had happened at the counselor's banquet, he highly praised them and said, It's what I'm reading is called the Three Princes of Serendip, or the Peregrinations of the Three Princes of Serendip. The emperor says to our three princes, I don't doubt that because you are so prudent and so highly intelligent, you were able to guess so many things, and you have saved my life from the hands of the disloyal and wicked counselor. I wonder whether you would also be able to find a solution for an issue of great importance that I am dealing with at the moment. I really know that you will not deny me this, since I have now noticed the great love you have for me when it concerns my life. And hello, Christopher. They readily offered him their help in any way needed, and having said that, the emperor began. The ancient philosophers of this kingdom, who were always highly regarded by my predecessors, discovered a type of mirror, which was called the mirror of justice. Because of this property, when two people had a dispute, the judge made them look into the mirror. The face of the one who was wrong instantaneously turned black, while the face of the one who legitimately defended himself retained its natural color, and he was declared the winner by the judge. Thanks to the virtue of the mirror, witnesses were therefore not necessary, and the people lived in so much peace and calm that this empire resembled paradise itself. And he whose face turned black because of fraud could not regain his natural color unless he was lowered, into a very deep well, where he must remain for 40 days with only bread and water to support his life. When he was taken out of the well after the punishment and led into the presence of the people where he confessed his sin, he recovered his natural color. Because of fear of the mirror, the people lived in great tranquility. Each was content with his status and worked the land. The country abounded with everything, and any poor merchant or foreigner who arrived from other parts would return rich to his homeland. The Lord God had raised all forces against the enemies of this kingdom, and for many years everyone enjoyed a joyful and happy life. At that time lived my grandfather, who had 2 children. One of them was my father, and the other my uncle. After his death, both made claims to the empire, and it came about that my father got the upper hand. Then the brother, waiting for the occasion to take revenge, actually managed. Oh, excuse me. I'm starting to lose to the yawns, guys. It's after 3 a.m., so I'm going to start to lose to the yawns. Sorry. Then the brother, waiting for the occasion to take revenge, actually managed to steal the mirror and take it with him, fleeing to India. The queen there was a virgin who had assigned the care of the kingdom to one of her counselors. My uncle presented the mirror to this virgin and spoke to her about all its virtues, which, however, he could not demonstrate outside his own kingdom. In the main city of that country, which was located near the coast, a great straight open hand appeared each day at sunrise above the sea, which remained until sunset at the spot where it had arisen. At the onset of the night, the hand would approach the shoreline and take a man into the sea with it, and this occurred continually. That hand is capitalized, and so I'm thinking this is a disembodied magical hand of some kind. And this occurred continually. So up to that time, a large number of men in that country had been lost. This caused the people to be very sad and sorrowful, and they decided to take the mirror to the shoreline in front of the hand, believing that perchance it could solve the problem. And from placing the mirror in front of the hand, they gathered this benefit, that whereas before the hand had taken 1 man per day, it no longer took a man, but a horse or an ox. Now my father had a strong desire to recover the mirror, since his kingdom had lost its previous happiness, and he sent one of his ambassadors to the queen to offer her a great treasure, if she were willing to send the mirror back to him. The ambassador used various reasons to persuade her, especially by demonstrating to her that the mirror could not bring any benefit to her country, while his kingdom would regain its previous state and tranquility. I want to jump in real quick. This is deliberately overlong and detail heavy on purpose. The point here, I'm going to repeat this because it's detail heavy for me too. It's overlong and detail heavy on purpose because the point is to see who's paying attention to the important details. I don't know what they are yet. I read these like I'm 6 years old. I'm not trying to figure out that, like with the women. I think you've been along the ride with me. I'm not trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. I'm just trying to make sure I have the details in the correct order. I don't know yet. They'll explain the solution of the mystery they're establishing, but right now they're establishing the mystery. It's like folklore, right? It's like the Mothman prophecy. You got to get all the stories together to try to figure out what the commonality between them is. But yeah, I don't know what the hand is. Initial caps. So if that's a kind of dog maybe, or a kind of like, I don't know what that is. Unless it's a disembodied hand that literally reaches up out of the ocean and grabs them. I understand, Christopher. Our author here is a Cristoforo, so you're Cristoforo for the time being. I genuinely don't know. But yeah, it sees itself. If it's a hand, it doesn't have any eyes. Yeah, to your point, yeah, it doesn't have any eyes, and it sees itself in the mirror, and it starts taking oxes or horses for some reason. Continuing now. Now my father had a strong desire to recover the mirror, since his kingdom had lost its previous happiness, and he sent one of the ambassadors to the queen to offer her a great treasure if she was willing to send the mirror back to him. The ambassador used various reasons to persuade her, especially by demonstrating to her that the mirror could not bring any benefit to her country, while his kingdom would regain its previous state and tranquility. But as the ambassador's words were of no avail, he returned and said that because of the benefit that the kingdom at that time received from the change of a man into a horse or an ox, which the hand carried into the sea every day, that the queen did not want to return the mirror unless my father was able to find a remedy against the ruin which the hand caused. Okay, and so now we're at our multi-stage quest, right? We're on a multi-stage quest. And so like Adventure Time, right? The show Adventure Time, or just any fantasy quest. I'm still in the prologue of the Three Princes of Serendip. I'm on Wikisource. Um, I'm approaching 14R. So we're on a multi-step quest. So like if you're familiar with the short story The Gift, or like any episode of any show, any serial show, um, when you've got like a character who's like, okay, I want to do this thing, and that person is preventing me. How will you stop preventing me from doing this thing? And they're like, I want you to do a favor for me. And then you go down, you go down to that person to do their favor, and then they want you to do a favor before they'll do that favor. And this is how fantasy novels are strung together. Once you finally get that, adventure video games are like this too. Once you finally get the person to complete a quest for you, all of the quests come complete all at the same time, and then you just go back down the chain, completing all the quests, and that's the end of the game. Like, that's kind of what Final Fantasy is, the first one, the video game. This is awesome. Okay, so continuing. But if it so happened that her kingdom was freed from so much misery, and since her ancestors had been on very good terms with our predecessor, she would, out of the goodness of her heart, have the mirror returned. But since my father did not know how to realize this, that is, get rid of the hand, he could never recover the previous tranquility. Because I know you to be men gifted with such lofty and noble intelligence, I am led to believe that if you wish to liberate that kingdom from the misfortune of the hand, you'll bring back the mirror to me, and thus peace and happiness to my empire. If you are willing to do that, I promise to bestow great treasure upon you. Yeah, I love it too, Dan. The young men understood the words and the need of the Lord, and because of the many courtesies and honors they had received, they immediately promised him that they would go to India and would not return in front of his presence unless they brought the mirror back with them. Okay, I am in the middle now of 14V, by the way. This delighted the emperor beyond measure, and he escorted them with some of his main barons as he sent them on their way to India. After their departure, his life became happy, as he hoped that the mirror would be brought back through the subtle foresight of the young men. And since he greatly enjoyed music and song, he invited the finest singers and musicians from each part of the country. He regaled them with gifts and treated them to garden parties and hunting, while he awaited with a great longing the return of the young men. It happened in those days It happened in those days that a merchant who had passed by there with his merchandise had heard that the Lord delighted in music and song, and that he gave great gifts for those enjoyments. He had a slave of exceptional beauty with excellent musical skills, superior to those of others in those days. The emperor, who heard this, called on him and ordered the young woman, called Dilarama, to be brought into his presence forthwith to ascertain her great ability in the musical arts. The order was given without delay. This is very interesting. We've shifted point of view of who our characters are. So dressed beautifully, so dressed beautifully, the young lady came before Baramo with her master. The emperor saw her rare beauty and heard the gentleness of the music and songs which the young woman performed in his presence. He was deeply enamored of her, and spent a large amount of money to buy her from the merchant. He made her dress into rich ceremonial garments, and was immeasurably in love with the young woman. He wanted to be with her wherever he found himself free from public duties. One day it happened that he went on a hunt with her, and they encountered a deer, and he said to Dilarama, "Do you see that deer? Now I want to shoot it with an arrow. But in what part do you want me to wound it? If you will tell me that, then I will certainly wound it in that part." To which she replied, "Sire, I am convinced that, since you are a valiant archer, the deer will be hit wherever you wish. But please, she confided in him, I'll tell you that I will love to see the animal wounded with a single shot both in its foot and its ear. Dilarama believed that it was something impossible that the Lord could never do. But Baramo, who was endowed with noble and great talent, promised to accomplish what the young woman just requested, and he took a slingshot in hand and released it, striking the deer's ear with the projectile. As irrational animals usually do, the deer, which was in pain, scratched its ear with its foot, and the emperor, without hesitating, shot it with the bow and arrow. And the deer, which kept scratching itself, was hit in the foot and the ear in a single shot. All of his barons admired him immensely, as they had observed great and shrewd foresight by Baramo, who said cheerfully to the young woman, What do you say, Dilarama? Have I satisfied your request? To which she replied with a chuckle, I am sure, sire, that if you hadn't tricked both the deer and me with that slingshot, you could never have done it. But with the trickery you used, every other man could also have pierced the deer's foot and ear. This is interesting. This is almost like a Robin Hood moment, but it's also it's set in India, so it's very much a somebody help me out who knows their Hindu gods better than I do. But isn't this Arjuna? Isn't Arjuna an archer? Hey, I'm glad that it's working for you. I'm glad that it's working for so many of you. Hey, what's up, Mustang? Yes, I'm reading a book. It's called The Three Princes of Serendip, or also The Peregrinations of the Three Princes of Serendip. Continuing. The emperor heard these seemingly disrespectful words and feared that they had stained his honor, since the most important barons of his court had heard them. Notwithstanding all the love he had for her, his heart was fiercely wounded. He was overcome by fervent anger, and believing that he could not otherwise recover his honor, he ordered his ministers to have the young woman undress, have her hands tied behind her back, and lead her into a forest nearby where the wild animals would devour her during the night. The ministers carried out the order without delay. They took the miserable, sorrowful young woman into the forest and left her to the mercy of the wild animals. Upon their return, they told the emperor that they had fully carried out his order. When he heard this, Barama was greatly troubled by his love and anger, and he returned to the city sorrowful and sad. What the fuck? Meanwhile, Dilarama, who had remained in the forest with her hands tied, started to cry profusely when the night fell. She recommended herself to God, all the while looking around in every direction for a wild animal coming to devour her. While she was walking in this way, she came upon the main road, and it pleased God that at sundown a caravan of merchants, which was on its way to their nearby lodging, heard the cries of the young woman, who was in a miserable state. Then the oldest of them followed her voice, and as he approached her, he saw that she was young and beautiful, and he had great compassion for her. He untied her hands, dressed her in some clothing, and took her with him to the lodging. Then he asked her who she was, what had happened to her, and why she was undressed and bound, and had fallen into such a disastrous and miserable state. She could not answer this, and just said that she was a musician. So the innkeeper gave the merchant a lute, and he handed it to the young woman. When he heard the sweetness and delicateness of her music and singing, he was amazed and enamored by her abilities. He welcomed her as his daughter and led her to his country. Meanwhile, Baramo returned to the city, and because his love was stronger than his anger, he regretted that he had treated the young woman so cruelly, and tried with all his power to find her again. He called in the same ministers who had carried out his order in the forest, and commanded them to go on horseback with a great company and, well armed to defend themselves against wild animals, to return to the forest immediately. They were to make every conceivable effort to find the young woman, dress her again in her clothes, untie her hands, and bring her into his presence. The ministers carried out the order promptly and went to the forest without any delay. But, after diligently searching every part of the forest all night, they could not find Dilarama, who had been rescued by the merchant. When they returned to the emperor the following day, they assured him that while they had diligently searched for her everywhere in the forest, they had been unable to find her, and since there were plenty of wild animals, it was assumed that they had really devoured her. Like every other man in the world would be, he was overcome by a deep melancholy because of this painful event. He was struck by a serious illness which effectively deprived him of sleep. Despite the great treatment he received, he was unable to recover. Ah, okay. Peregrination is the Latin word for just a kind of journey, and I assumed that peregrines must meander, and yeah, peregrination is a long or meandering journey. Continuing. Because of this, he was consumed by bitterness, and imminent death awaited him. This caused much sorrow to all the main barons of the realm. They met and consulted among themselves and concluded that because the doctors were unable to restore their lord to health, they should as well as they could give him nourishment until the three brothers would return from India with the mirror. Oh, I guess this isn't set in India, it's set east of India. At that time, they were certain that they, highly intelligent as they were, would be able to find an effective remedy for Baramo's infirmity. Oh, excuse me. As soon as the brothers arrived in India, and a day before they entered the royal city together with the barons of the emperor who were in their company, they let the queen know that, based on the past agreement between her and Baramo, he had sent some men who hoped to find some remedy against the hand, which had caused so much ruin in that kingdom. They were in the neighboring city, and the queen could command whatever she wished, so that the mirror could be returned to the emperor. This news delighted the queen immensely and brought her in a festive mood, and she sent a large party of her main barons to meet the young men more than 10 miles outside the city. The brothers arrived before the queen, and they were happily received by her. They were brought into a very ornate palace, where a regal banquet had been prepared. Their riding clothing was removed, and they were seated at the table with the barons of the queen. And here they discussed various topics with wise reasoning, but since the hour was late and they were very tired from the long journey, they retired with the kind permission of the royal ministers. The following morning they arose early and were seated by the counselors of the queen in her name. They were presented the finest wines and some of the most delicious food, and they spent a long time to learn about the damage which the hand had caused in that country. Then they answered them with these words: Emperor Baramo, who is anxious to recover his mirror, which is in the possession of your queen, according to the pact proposed by her to him, has sent us to these parts, above all to free this kingdom from such damage continuously caused by the hand which appears on the sea every day, and then we have to take it back to him. Maybe a hand is a kind of boat. Oh, it's the root of the word pilgrim, huh? Peregrine is the word of the word pilgrim. Hey, that's cool, and I love learning things about etymological sources. I didn't know that pilgrim and peregrine are what, phonemes? Is that how that is that? That's probably not right, but that they share a common phoneme. I didn't know that. Sorry. Continuing. The counselors said that the queen was most delighted, and that if they freed the country from the damage caused by the hand, the mirror would immediately be assigned to them. The young men left in an orderly manner to return in time the next day. The counselors went together with them to the seashore, and they would operate in such a manner that the hand would not reappear in the future, nor would anyone anywhere in the country be carried off. This news spread through the city, and everyone was very pleased and felt great admiration. Knowing that the following morning the young men would go out to the seashore, a large number of people went outside the city at night to the place where the young men were going to be. And when the counselors, accompanied by the whole court, came in the morning, they went to the palace where the young men were staying. Then they left together and arrived on the seashore at sunrise, and saw the hand raising straight up and opening above the sea. There the older brother stood up immediately, and, facing the hand, raised his own hand, with the second and third fingers straight up. Second and third fingers straight up. No, it's a hand. I think it's a hand. Because he sees the hand and raises his own hand. I think it's a hand. And he puts the middle two fingers up. Oh, a hand is three. Okay, it's three masts. A hand is a boat with three masts, and so he's doing this because it looks like three-masted ship. If you do this, is that it? Oh, okay, speculating again. Fair enough. And the other fingers held tight and low, unless he means this. Does he might mean this. Because the other three fingers tight and low. Yeah, I don't know what that, I don't know. First two and then other, so the thumb must be, so he must mean this, tight and low, like that. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm going to read it again, though. Raised his own hand with the second and third fingers straight up, and the other fingers held tight and low. Like this. He's doing this. He's holding his hand up like this. That's my guess. Thereupon, the hand which had caused so much destruction plunged into the sea, and it has never been seen by anyone since. No, it was a hand, and it came out of the sea and went back into the sea. Unless it's like an octopus. But I think it's a hand. I think it's a hand. I think it's a grabbing giant hand. The people were amazed and greatly admired the spectacle they were witnessing, and the queen was immediately informed of all that had occurred. Therefore the queen was happy and extremely satisfied, and the young men who were still at the seashore were greatly celebrated and honored at the city gate. And before they returned to the palace assigned to them, they had to present themselves to her. So they obeyed her command and returned to the city. Having reached the royal palace, they met with the queen. She received them with great honors and solemnity and affectionately asked them to reveal the great secret with which they had performed the great miracle. As the young man who had driven away the hand from the sea wanted to satisfy the demand of the queen, he withdrew with her from the people who were present so that they could not overhear the words he spoke. You must know, madam, he said, that as soon as I saw the open hand above the sea this morning, I realized that it could only mean that if 5 men with a single purpose could be found, it would be sufficient to conquer all countries in the world. And because it should be understood that, since until now this meaning has not been discovered, one could foresee that the hand would continue to cause serious harm and evil to your people. God helped me to understand this. I stood at the seashore, and facing the hand, I raised my own hand, with the index and middle fingers held straight up, and the others clenched and low, like this. I made the hand plunge into the sea in shame, so that it will never reappear. For if the hand intended to symbolize that it would take 5 like-minded men to master the world, I showed that this was a delusion, and that not 5, but just 2 men, with the same purpose, would have been sufficient to accomplish this. So the hand is literally open. It's this. It's a disembodied hand, giant and huge, comes out of the ocean, does this, and then snatches somebody. It's weird. The queen greatly admired these words, and she realized that the young men were endowed with noble and high intelligence. They took their leave from the palace of the queen, and accompanied by the principals of the court, they returned to their palace. Afterward, here we go. Afterwards, the queen's counselors met together with her and discussed the return of the mirror to Beramo for the benefits received, and the eldest of them said, There is no doubt that as far as we have already seen, the young men have liberated the country from a serious misfortune. But who can be certain that sooner or later the hand will not return, and we will find ourselves again in the previous situation? So it seems to me that we must seriously consider this issue before the mirror is returned. The queen added to these words, we cannot. Sorry, my computer is acting crazy. We cannot, nor must we fail to fulfill our promise made to Beramo, but to be sure that the hand will no longer harass our country, I have an excellent remedy, and it is this. The king, my father, his memory be blessed, left me the rule of such a great kingdom, and among the many admonitions he gave me before he passed away, said to me, Daughter, because you will inherit the rule of the kingdom after my death, I will be certain that many princes and great lords will with all means attempt to acquire it by marrying you. But because kingdoms usually grow and are preserved not just with prudence, but also with strength, I command you that you should not accept someone as your husband, if he is unable to divine one of two things which I will now mention to you. But if you find someone who can elucidate one of these to you, you must take him as your husband. Whereas I judge that these three young men, who are brothers by their noble bearing, must be the sons of a great prince, one of you should oblige them under oath reveal their lineage. Since I am inclined to believe that they are of noble origin, the one of them who can elucidate one of two things my father the king told me, I will try to take as my husband. I believe that this will happen, for it seems to me that they are endowed with much prudence and great intelligence, and therefore if one of them will remain together with me as the head of my kingdom, we will not have to be afraid that at some time or another the hand will bring harm to our people. Because the counselors liked the proposition of the queen very much, one of them went the next day to meet the young men and spent a good amount of time with them to let them understand that they could not have liberated the country from the ordeal of the hand were it not for their great intelligence and prudence. The queen very much wanted to know who they were and whose sons they were, and they were asked kindly to reveal this to her, for the young men, who had not wanted to reveal their case to anyone up to now, replied that they were three young sons of poor and common parents who happened to have come to Baramo's court. To these words, which neither the queen nor anyone else could believe, because of their noble bearing as well as their great prudence and their wisdom, the counselor added by saying, Because I truly know that it is not very believable that you are the sons of poor and common parents, and in the end it is more for that reason than for me, nor that others will harass you, that you will be glad to swear that you have told that what you have told me is true. Therefore, that when I report that you have confirmed your status under oath, I know that your words will be fully believed. When they realized that they had to take the oath, they deliberated and consulted among themselves that they had to reveal the truth. They approached the counselor and told him under the oath that they were the sons of Jafar, king of Serendip, and what had happened to them thus far. The queen heard this and was immeasurably happy, as she believed that, regardless, by taking one of the young men for husband, her country would be forever liberated from the ordeal of the hand. Maybe Hand of the Stars, yeah. Thank you, Dan. She made them come before her the next day and addressed them as follows. Until now, I have held you in great reverence because of your keen foresight and great knowledge, and the great benefit that you have brought to my kingdom, by liberating it from destruction by the hand. So now that you have revealed to me to be sons of a great prince, recognizing the nobility of your blood, accompanied by so much wisdom, I honor and revere you above all others, and according to the pact made by me with Paramo, I am obliged to return the mirror to him, and I must not, or I do not want to fail my word. And whenever you wish, I will deliver it, as always, at your pleasure. And since you are of such noble lineage, it cannot be that you are not also endowed with the greatest courtesy. I still want to ask you another favor, worthy of much of your prudence and wisdom, but before I disclose to you, whatever it is, I want you to promise to me that you will not refuse me. After the young men responded that they would be ready to fulfill her command, she added, When I was still a girl, before the king, my father, blessed be his memory, had passed away, I heard him frequently discuss with his barons the possibility that a man could eat in one day a whole warehouse of salt, but that he had never been able to meet such a man. Now, knowing you to be prudent and wise, I think that you will be able to solve this enigma for me, and I beg you to do that. To these words, the second brother responded, saying, Madame, because I see that you greatly desire to have this clarified, I tell you that it will be very easy to eat a whole warehouse of salt in a day, and I offer to do so myself whenever you wish. The queen greatly admired this, having observed the great intelligence of the young men, and she ordered her barons to have this proven the following day. They agreed to the command and rose early in the morning and went to the palace where the young men resided. They took them to the warehouse where the salt was stored and ordered the ministers in charge to open the door immediately. The young man entered without any hesitation and wetted the tip of one hand with saliva. He placed it on top of the salt and removed a few grains, ate it, and turned to the barons and said that they should close the warehouse, since he had done what was required of him. Everyone greatly admired it, but could not believe that this was the act the young man had kept the promise made. That this act the young man had kept the promise made. He added again that they also had to report to the queen what he had done, and that he himself would give her a full account. When the queen was informed of this by her barons, she gave the order that the young man should come into her presence. When he appeared before the queen, she asked him how he intended to have satisfied the promise by eating only 4 grains of salt. He replied that who anyone who would have eaten with his friend as much salt as he had placed in his mouth at the warehouse, and would not have known what is obliged by friendship, would never have known it when he ate it, whether it would have been stored in 10 warehouses or a single one. Therefore, he believed that he had fulfilled his promise completely. This is interesting. Now we're going into an exploration of Aristotelian friendship. The queen greatly appreciated the answer given, for this was what her father had taught her when the statement was dubious, and she highly praised the young man for his subtle foresight. Then she said, "Now, there is something else, and if you can solve it for me, then I will regard you more as gods than as men." I don't actually understand the explanation, so I'm going to read it again. He replied that anyone who would have eaten with his friend as much salt as he had placed in his mouth at the warehouse, and would not have known what is obliged by friendship, would never have known it when he ate it, whether it had been stored in 1 or 10 warehouses. And so he has to eat. Okay, 1 second. The king discussed the possibility frequently with his barons that a man could eat in 1 day a whole warehouse of salt. But he'd never been able to meet such a man. And so the prince's response, the correct response, I don't know that I understand it. You can eat a warehouse of salt in 1 day. And he replied that anyone who would have eaten with his friend 4 grains of salt and would not have known what is obliged by friendship. I don't know what's obliged by friendship. You seem to fit in just here. You fit in just fine here, Tricky. Interesting. Oh, I see. I think I understand what he's saying. I actually do think I understand how this works. Okay, 4 grains of salt, what you could pick on your hand. That he's saying here that the warehouse is relative. It is interesting. He's saying that the warehouse, the storage, the warehouse is relative. So the somebody that ate 4 grains of salt but didn't understand the obligations of what's obliged of you in a friendship, has a warehouse of information that's 4 grains of salt large. That's a mind fuck. I'm probably wrong, but I think that's what he's trying to say. Storage of mind. Yeah. Because that's the queen says that's the correct answer. And so, because he's given us the mystery and then the correct answer, and it doesn't, I would need to know more about what's obliged of friends according to Aristotle. It's kind of beyond comprehensible because it's 16th century. Could be the source of it, maybe. Yeah, maybe. That's my best guess. And so she's going to go on to another question here. And so we're going to move on because the queen greatly appreciated the answer given, for this was what her father had taught her when the statement was dubious. Yeah, that the warehouse is all coming from one place generally. That makes sense to me. It does help for forgiveness, Tricky, for sure. Then the queen says, "Now, there is something else, and if you can solve it for me, then I will regard you more as gods than as men." "And in this too," replied the youngest brother. "Give me your attention, madam, at whatever time you would like me to satisfy you." He was given the order to come to the royal palace the following morning. He appeared before the queen at the set hour. She ordered everyone to leave the room, and only her first counselor and the young man to remain with her. She opened a small box and took 5 eggs from it, and addressed the young man as follows: "As you see, these are 5 eggs, and there are only 3 of us in this room. Whereas your 2 brothers have passed such challenging tests in my kingdom, and if you also know how to divide these 5 eggs into 3 equal parts between us, without breaking any of them, then I would dare to affirm that 3 other men of equal intelligence cannot be found in the whole world." Hey, thanks, Duke. Yeah, I kind of that was my first thought, is that you can eat an entire warehouse of salt in a day. It's like the salt is indistinguishable, so you eat any 4 grains, you've eaten any other 4 grains. The guest friend thing is actually an Indo-European thing, Chris. Um, the word guest is actually a very old Indo-European word. But the hospitality thing, it was a big deal to the Greco-Romans, yes. It's a big deal to the Mediterraneaners in general. Xenia is correct as the Greek word for what you're looking for, yeah. The particular kind of hospitality that you're talking about to strangers and travelers is Xenia. And that's why these 3 are traveling and hiding their identity, because according to Xenia, and this is just how it worked across the Mediterranean, and so evidently it worked across the Persian Empire, and it's being imagined as far east of us as Sri Lanka, basically China. Um, is the way it worked is that you took residence and people at your social station, and not below it and not higher than it, and so that's why the queen is like, they have to be noble. They have to be princes, or the sons of princes, um, because you give Xenia to people of your station. And I appreciate you saying that, because Xenia is something I'm talking about all the time. That's what the Odyssey is about Xenia. And in the 1500s, the classical works like the Odyssey, the Iliad, specifically Aristotle, were coming back in. That's what the Renaissance is the rebirth of the classical world of literature and philosophy, including Aristotle, but specifically Aristotle. Um, and so this Cristoforo, who's writing this book, and it's not so much writing this book as translating this Persian folk story into English, or into Italian, and then we're reading an English translation of the Italian. Um, he's intentionally, I this is part of my personal work, if you like, something that I'm constantly arguing with the books, the histories. I am fascinated, obsessed maybe even, with King Arthur. And one of the things I'm always arguing with Jim and I after I read a book or I listen to a lecture or whatever, because I don't know any of these people, and I don't have the temperament to actually work in scholarship. Um, One of the things I keep insisting and I keep finding elsewhere outside of works of Arthurian scholarship is that Arthur was a big deal in Italy by the 1200s. Arthur was a huge deal in Italy by the 1200s. This is the 1500s when Arthur is already a big deal in Germany. And so he said he was trying to go to Francia, but he made it to Venice. And so Arthur would be everywhere. Everybody knows this story. And he's going, oh, we have a story like that. I know a story like that. Because this is very much an Arthur legend. And I have been arguing my whole life, but for the last decade. That's correct. Christoph, Chris, that's correct. I was being shorthand, but yes. He's contributing. He's showing what I've been saying. The Arthur stories were they were very, 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 very old Indo-European myths that were specifically Celtic. They were specifically Celtic. And then they got crazy. Things got political and they changed. They moved to France and then they come back. But Arthur independently migrates to Italy around the year 900. Bards make it all the way from Wales to Italy by the year 900 with the Arthur myths. Okay? By 1200, in that mount, is it Etna that blew up? It's Etna that's in Sicily, right? The volcano Etna is in Sicily. By the 1200s, Arthur is in Etna. The King Arthur is in Etna. He's the king of the dead in the volcano Etna. That's where, for example, other gods of the dead were, like Hephaestus might have been, and it wouldn't have been Hephaestus to the Italians, but to the Sicilians, the god of the dead, the god, the Lord of Hosts, the god called the Lord of Hosts, was in Etna and had been in Etna since time immemorial, since Sicily was settled. King Arthur was in there by 1200. This is cool. This is a Persian coming in before anybody had figured out that all of these languages, the Indo-European languages, were the same language family. Before anybody had figured this out, this guy came to Italy and went, oh, you guys like stories like this. We have a super fucking old one. The Persians are Indo-European. They had King Arthur myths before English, Welsh, before the British Isles and Persia, and one of the names for the Lord of the Hebrews is the Lord of Hosts. Yeah, but it's a specific job, because it's Old Testament. Lord of Hosts is a specific job. The host is the dead, the Lord of the dead, the Lord of Hosts. The hosts are the dead. I did a whole. I've done a lot of videos about this actually on the channel, but I did a whole series of videos where I was investigating the Lord of the Hunt. And so if you know The Witcher, the Wild Hunt, that's the god of the Hebrews. The Lord, the Lord, sort of. Charon isn't the Lord of the dead. Charon is the psychopomp that takes people to the Lord of the dead. Hades is the host of the dead among the Greeks, the Lord of the dead. But Jesus originally functioned as a psychopomp because he was meant to replace the Lord of the Hosts, the Lord of Hosts. They called Jesus Lord of Hosts. In the Middle Ages, they thought Lord of Hosts meant the Lord of hosting feasts. That's how the Grail, the Holy Grail before Christianity got into the King Arthur myths was a fucking cup. It was just a bowl that people drank from. But the Holy Grail was a bowl that always had wine in it, and the wine was life-giving. That sounds like Jesus's blood in the chalice. And the reason that there was blood, even in the first century, the reason that there was blood captured in a chalice is because this Grail chalice, Indo-European, it's a thing and had been a thing for fucking 3,000 years or 5,000 years or something by the time of Jesus. You're funny, Christopher. But in Indo-European myth cycles, there are threes. That's how Charon, Cerberus, and Hades. You got the Lord of the Host. You got the dog that keeps people from leaving the Lord of the Host's realm, and you've got Charon, the person who brings people to. That is a trinity that does exist. Indo-European myth cycles work in trinities. That's why Christianity is so different from Judaism. Judaism is a monotheistic religion with a dualist worldview. Indo-Europeans work in trinities. Hebrew is a Semitic faith. So Islam is a Semitic faith and doesn't incorporate trinities. That's why, no, I'm entirely serious. Islam doesn't incorporate trinities. Islam is a monotheistic faith with a dualistic worldview. And the reason that Islam rejected philosophy, they absorbed and translated all of it and then ultimately rejected all of the Greco-Roman philosophy and Persian philosophy. They kept it all, but they rejected it for their faith and for their thinking and for their right way of being, because it's all Indo-European. They rejected the trinities. It's all trinities. And so they rejected all of the trinities, because you can't have a complex system without three parts. And a dualistic monotheism isn't complex. So you can't innovate with it. And that's the point. Islam and Judaism don't want to innovate. Islam as a world religion that is used to conquer huge swaths of the human population absolutely does not want those people innovating. It doesn't want those people innovating. Muhammad wrote Islam, he created Islam to never schism. And so what it did when he died is immediately schism into three factions that will never innovate. Will never innovate. It cannot innovate. Whereas Christianity, as you notice, can't stop innovating because it's Trinitarian. So it's just popping off complex sister religions like crazy. That's what the Indo-European faith and language systems are designed to do. They're designed for perpetuation. They're designed for innovation. They're designed to be future-proof. That's why the Indo-European language family completely controls the entire planet. You cannot do commerce unless you're speaking English, French, German, a European language. The Persian language, Iranian, isn't as big a deal as it used to be, but the Ottoman Empire used to be an Indo-European empire. All of the world empires that have mattered have been Indo-European. That's not racism, it's language. It's crazy. You don't have to disagree. I mean, you don't have to agree. You're wrong, but you don't have to agree. It's the trinities. It's working in threes. It's complexity. Arabic is not a language of commerce. Arabic isn't a language of commerce. You don't need Arabic in order to do business in this world. You can absolutely denigrate Arabic and be very, very rich. It's not a language of trade. It's just not. Arabic isn't a lingua franca. The Arabs speak French to do business. Arabs learn English in order to do Arab-speaking people learn English in order to engage in the modern uh, in the modern economy. Arabic isn't a lingua franca. It's just not it's not a world language. It's a world language because of religion. It's a world language because of Islam, not because of commerce. It's just not. Not really. The Arabic people were the backwater Semitic people. They were traders. They were migrants, but they weren't a commercial society. Um, Islam and the spread of Islam is anti-commercial. Since 2001, we've been taught a lot of just frankly untrue things about Islam, so that people will stop being racist to Muslims in the United States. But Islam, the religion, is fundamentally anti-commercial. That's why they hate Jews, because they're commercial people. It's actually why Christians hate Jews, is because they were a commercial people. The Christians had to learn how to do international commerce by making Jews do it for them. I don't know about the Islamic debt system, but you don't need to know. You don't have to. You don't. We don't do business in Arabic. You don't. In order to do international commerce, you need to know English. You have to know English or French, maybe German. You have to know a European language. And increasingly, you want to know Arabic and Chinese, because those are emerging and developing markets, but they're not linguas franca. Even during the Crusades, if you wanted to do business, you had to speak French. That's why it's called a lingua franca, the French language. The book I'm reading is called The Peregrinations of the Three Princes of Serendip. Yeah, I understand, Chris. That's why I'm being specific, and I'm repeating my core claim is that the all of the languages that you need to speak in order to engage in the modern world are Indo-European, and all of the language systems that have undergirded every single imperial government on the planet is an Indo-European government system. The Chinese do not have a native government. They have a European government. Sure, the initial development of Arabic, sure. But I mean, I kind of think you mean the initial explosion of Arabic, because Arabic is a language that's at least as old as Hebrew. The Arabic people were desert nomads at the time that the Bible was being canonized. The there's There are whole entirely actually racist and anti-Arabic folk etymologies and folk histories in the Bible, like the whole Abraham, Abram, and his wife's slave, um, Gomer. Is it Gomer? Abraham and Gomer. Um, Ishmael, Gomer's son, is the forebear of the Arabs, and he's considered not included in Levantine. He's considered not included in Levantine history. The Arabs were considered too backwater even for the Jews, the Hebrew writers. But yes, their empire grew so rapidly because they were anti-commercial, because they didn't trade with people outside themselves. They conquered everything, and instead of they conquered the whole Middle East, and then into the Indian subcontinent and North Africa. And what they did is they came in and they erased everybody's cultural history, but left all of their science and economy working. I love language, man. I love this stuff. Um, I fell in love with King Arthur, and I learned as a very young person that there are a lot of mysteries still left to be teased out of that, and I still have a little bit of this to finish. But my lady is awake. Yeah, that's. I'm actually reading this. Full disclosure, because serendipity is her favorite word, and this book is actually where it came from. A guy, uh, a guy heard the story, read the story, something before it made its way back to Europe, and he or made its way before it had been translated into English or something. I don't remember the exact story, but he wrote a letter about this story, about this book to a guy, and he described something as serendipitous, using this book as a to explain the thing that he was describing in this personal letter. Eastern languages and early philosophy. Well, I uh, I don't know how to answer that really. But I lean for my answer into the Great Lectures course, the Great Minds of the Eastern tradition, where he opens by saying that they don't technically have philosophy, and that Eastern tradition is actually rejecting philosophy in a lot of ways, but they have great thinkers, and they have complex languages. So like Taoism, I've read the Tao Te Ching, or I've read like the first 30 poems of the Tao Te Ching for the channel, and Taoism and Buddhism got me where I am today, uh, trying to complete those. And hello, Spider Man. Good morning. It's morning for me. Yeah, sure. Good morning, Rachie. Yeah, what I like about the Tao Te Ching, and what I like to think about with the Tao Te Ching, is when I read a lot. Yes, Mustang, I read a lot. I used to read more by volume. I work too much now, and so the reading that I want to do, I put on the channel, because I don't have time to just read for pleasure or self edification anymore. Yeah, me too, Spider Man. I've been up all night too. Um, nah, it's good, man. It's all good. It's all good. Um, what I like to think about with the Tao Te Ching is I like to remind myself of the context it was written in. So you got this old man who is a career politician, completely giving up on the Warring States period of China, uh, riding an ox into a rice field, but gifting history that book. It's pretty awesome. Hey, I found my night crew. That's cool. Thank you guys. I do have to finish this. I am going to continue now. We've had a very long sidebar, a very long we've had a very long whatever. Sidebar is the right word. I am going to continue this because I would like to finish this first part, the prologue, and then I would like to go to bed. So thank you guys for engaging me on this. And I know I've left a lot of meat on the bone. I know I did not finish what I was talking about with the King Arthur thing, but I am of the opinion, as I read this, that our author is deliberately trying to contribute to the King Arthur, and the growing, the at the time, growing collection of Indo-European myths that in Europe, and that growing collection is how the German philologists were able to figure out that these languages are all the same family from the 19th century. So this is cool. Okay, so the queen and her counselor and the youngest of the three brothers in this room with her, and she wants him to evenly divide 5 eggs by the 3 of them. I have no idea how this is going to happen. And so the young man says, "Madam, what you have asked me is no big thing." And then he immediately removed the eggs from the queen's hand, placed 3 in front of her, gave 1 of them to the counselor, and kept the other for himself. "Madam, here are 3 equal parts without breaking any," he said. But indicating that she could not believe this. Thank you, Rachie. But indicating that she could not believe this, since the young man had given no other explication, he said, excusing himself, "There are 3 equal parts as follows. Your counselor and I already have 2 eggs each in our pants, and you have none. Of the 5 you gave me, 3 of them are allocated to you, 1 to the counselor, and the other 1 to myself. Now that each of us has 3 of them, they have been fairly divided between the 3 of us." Evidently, he doesn't know that she has a lot more eggs than he does. It's all good, man. It's all good, Chris. You can get to me through Discord or my Patreon. Those are the ways that you can easily get a hold of me. But I'm cagey when I'm not on camera, pal. That is such a hilarious and medieval. I love the way this next paragraph starts. That's such a hilarious and medieval solution to the problem. The queen liked this answer very much, although it made her blush somewhat, and she showed the young man that she was very appreciative of him. He asked her permission to return to his palace, whereupon she remained with her counselor, and she said to him that it had pleased the Lord that these young men, the sons of such a great king, were in her country, and that they knew so promptly the answers to the questions they were asked. Until then, one of the many men she had interrogated, none had been able to come up with the solutions. Following her father's advice, she had decided to try to have 1 of them as her husband, and while all 3 of them were highly intelligent, she very much liked the one who had clarified so prudently the question of the salt. Oh, so she finds the middle brother attractive. I love this. The counselor carried out the order given to him to meet with the young men, and he fully informed them of the desire of the queen to learn the name of the man who had clarified the question of the salt and who she intended to marry. The young men were very surprised about this, and they could hardly believe the words of the counselor to be true. They first consulted at some length among themselves, and they decided to accept such a high marriage. And he who was designated to be the spouse informed the counselor that because the queen had shown so many signs of love for them, he was most willing to comply with her wishes and expressed infinite gratitude to her on behalf of himself and his brothers. But knowing that their king, their father, had sent them away from his realm, it was right that they should go to their country as obedient children, and explain the events to him, and with his favorable permission return immediately to celebrate the wedding. The queen was informed of the deliberations of the young men and that the marriage proposal had been accepted. She had them appear in her presence with the counselor, and she and the designated groom secretly consented to each other in the marriage. She ordered that the mirror would be returned to them without delay, according to the promise that the queen had made to Paramo. They went to their country so that the king could approve of the marriage with his blessing, and then they would return for the solemn wedding celebration. And in this manner, the mirror was entrusted to the young men, and they departed extremely happy and full of joy, and received precious gifts from the queen. In a short time they arrived in the kingdom of Paramo. While the emperor was not well because of an illness, he nevertheless rejoiced somewhat when he heard about the return of the young men and the institution of the mirror. He believed that, because he knew that they were highly intelligent, a remedy might be found for his misfortune. When the young men arrived in the royal city, the first counselor appeared in the emperor's presence and first kissed his hands and expressed much regret about his illness. He told him everything about the successful return of the mirror, the proofs given by the young people in the country of the queen, their revelation that they were the sons of Jafar, king of Serendip, and other events, including the upcoming marriage. And until now, I had, so prudently, up until now, I'd also forgotten that the king tried to get this woman killed and then felt bad about it. After Baramo heard all this, he let them come immediately into his presence, and he thanked them endlessly for the mirror that they had brought back. And he told them of the misfortune caused by Dilarama, and asked if they, with their intelligence and wisdom, could find a remedy for his illness. Because if they could not help him, it was very certain that in a very short time he would pass away, since up till the present time no man had been found who had been able to provide a remedy for his illness. And after he ended his discourse, the young people showed great regret because of his illness, and the eldest of them said to him, "Sire, I hope that a remedy for this misfortune will soon present itself, and it will be this. Not far away from this city you have a great and delightful land area. Here is what needs to be done if you want to recover your health. Have 7 beautiful palaces of various colors be constructed, in which you will stay an entire week, sleeping 1 night in each, starting on Monday. And beyond that," said the second brother, "send 7 of your ambassadors into the 7 climates of the world, and return from there with 7 virgins, daughters of the most important princes who reside there. Place each of them in one of the palaces, and pass the time of the week entertaining them with sweet and pleasant conversation." And when he finished speaking, the third brother added, "Give the order which is to be announced in the 7 principal cities of your empire, that the most excellent storyteller that resides in each of them must be brought into your presence, and if they tell you a beautiful story, send them back home with great gifts." Hence, Baramo ordered that the 3 things the young men had advised him had to be realized without delay, beginning with the construction of the palaces, while at the same time carrying out the other recommendations. And after the 7 palaces had been constructed, they were richly adorned, and a virgin and a storyteller were installed in each. Following the advice of the young men, on a Monday morning, Baramo was carried into the first palace on a sedan chair which was adorned with silver, and he himself and his entire entourage wore clothes embroidered with silver. Here he was laid down upon a beautiful and rich bed, for he was weak and rather weary because of his illness. He had the virgin come into his presence and entertained her for a long time with various and delightful conversations. At the vesper hour, he called for the storyteller. He came before the emperor and was ordered by one of the counselors to tell a beautiful story. The storyteller obliged immediately. First, he kissed the hands of the emperor and began as follows. End book 1. That's the prologue. This is a Shaggy Dog story, and I could not be happier to be reading it for you guys. Talk about serendipity. I could not be happier this is happening. Thank you guys. Usually lately when I've been, and hello Val, usually when I've been reading for the channel, I've been hate reading. I've been reading things that I want to have read, and then it turns out I fucking hate them. And this is awesome. This is awesome. This is hilarious. I love medieval comedy, dudes. Medieval comedy informed so much of the Looney Tunes, and then the Looney Tunes informed so much of short form narrative storytelling, comedy or otherwise, in the United States and elsewhere, that I love it. I love seeing how, frankly, the Jewish writers and artists were able to take the old stories that they were educated on in college and play them back for children in a way that didn't that wasn't just an adaptation of the story. So it wasn't obvious. It's not obvious. And I could be wrong when I go, oh, I recognize this here. I recognize this here. I recognize this here. That doesn't mean information transmission, that they read these stories or they were taught these stories in college. Yeah, Huckleberry Finn is very similar. Mark Twain was a Shaggy Dog storyteller. So Huckleberry Finn is in its ways a Shaggy Dog story. And Huckleberry Finn is also Tom Sawyer, really, but Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer are people that I absolutely model myself after. Modeled as a young boy. I haven't read those books since maybe second grade, but yeah, Popcorns and Aliens. I'm kind of glad that I haven't gotten a visitation um, since I've been in the tent. And thank you again, Rach. Thank all of you for those likes. Um, this is the end of the show. Um, Gig worker? No, I just do this, man. And then I guess no, I just do this. I used to gig, but I gigged in micro gaming. I played whatever, played games for money. Thank you, Rachie, and thank you, Dan. Thank you guys for your enthusiasm. I was going to be enthusiastic for this even if I had 0 people, but you made it a lot easier to laugh and have fun. And for my jump in to explain what I just read and what I just saw and what I read, you made it a lot easier for me. You made me feel a lot less guilty and stupid for liking this shit. Yeah, this is where the word serendipity comes from. This story, a guy read it. Like I read this story or heard this story, and he wrote a letter, and he used this story to frame something he was trying to say to a friend. And so for people who are like, man, where do words come from? How do words get made? That's how. You just use the language. You just talk, man. Well, the clock, it depends on what you mean by who invented the clock. History and stories are so fascinating, Dan. So fascinating. Yeah, and the story is legitimately great, Rach. The story is legitimately funny. It, I can't wait to get back to it. It's funny. I didn't expect it to be funny. And I didn't expect it to inform so much of what I already liked. So there's Sherlock Holmes in it. There's King Arthur in it. It's from the 1500s, and so it's informed by and parallel to and informs so much about what I already like. And yeah, right, Chris. Yeah, ask ask the Sumerians and the Neo-Babylonians and the Assyrians. Ask them because it really depends on your definition of clock here. Because humans have been using clocks for a long time. We were using water clocks. I want to say that the Romans were using water clocks and that the Mesopotamians were using them sooner. But how we figured out, yeah, base 20. How we figured out that there are 24 60-minute, 60-second um, periods, it wasn't one person. But I can't, like, if you guys want to know something I can't comprehend, it's base 6 math. I can't understand base 6 math. And yeah, I can't understand base 12. Uh, Base 6, base 60, I can't understand any of it. I can't understand how it works. I have tried to learn it and I do not understand. So how did somebody invent the first 60 minute? I have no idea. No, I think you're just hearing me say base 60 as 16, and I think you heard my 12 as 20. I think you're just I think you're mishearing the words I'm saying. That I might also be saying words other than the ones that I'm thinking because it's very late for me. Um, Base 6. Base 12 math is actually done in sixes. It's something to do with the knuckles in your hand. Yeah, base 12 is the knuckles in your hand. So you do math on the sections of your finger. I don't know how it works. Well, how it was determined was over time, and with the hexadecimal system that the Mesopotamian people used, the Sumerians, they figured it out. I don't know, and they figured out the math because they have that yeah, base 60 base. It's a six. Everything is sixes, but it comes from 12s. You have 12 um, 12 joints in your fingers. You have 12. You have 3 joints in each finger and 5 fingers. 3 joints in each section of your finger. How am I saying this? There's 12 of these fucking things. You have 12 phalanges, 12 of these knuckles. 15 of them really, but you have 12 of them, and then you can do 3 sections of the thumb to get up to whatever. Yeah. Yeah, hexadecimal is 16. Sexagesimal is 60, but the I think hexadecimal is what the Egyptians used. Yeah, it's 12 joints. You have 12 of these, and you multiply that by 5, and you have 60. You have 5 of these. That's how they arrived at it. That's the method that they used to count it or whatever. But then how how it neatly worked out that there are 24 hours and 60 minutes in each hour and 60 seconds in each minute, I don't know. The ancient people thought that stuff was evidences of God. Yeah, I don't know, Chris. I like I said, I do not understand this stuff. I don't understand computing in it. I don't understand how computing in it works, because I can understand the decimal system. Factors. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the way you can work the numbers. I understand that. But they like the sexagesimal system has 60 digits. Like it has 60 numbers that that represent. It's different than the decimal system. I don't know where the zero is. I just don't know how to I don't know how to compute arithmetic in these other systems. Because like if you want to represent 100 units of something in a base 12 system, you wouldn't use the number 100. And so I don't understand it at all. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome that you have a math degree. I love that. I don't get it. Because 100 in the decimal system makes sense to me, because you have 100. So you just write you annotate a 1 in the hundreds column. But that's not how you would annotate 100 in a base 16 or whatever. I don't understand it. I just genuinely don't get it. This is where I live. This is where I sleep. I've tried. I've really tried, and I can't. It just doesn't make sense. Exactly. You wouldn't think of it as 100. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to articulate. I'm just doing it badly. Yeah, base 60 is what the Sumerians used. Yeah. Base everything's in sixes. It's really base 6. Yes, rage. And the way they arrived at it is you have 12 joints. Yeah, that's confusing to me, Chris. I'm going to be honest with you. That's just confusing to me. Right, because I'm even trying to think of it, and I'm even like, okay, so like, if I'm trying to arrive at 100, it would be 10/12. Still wrong. Oh, I actually did get there. Times 10, but that's still not fully right. When I saw it, you said, oh, that's fucking confusing to me, Chris. I don't understand that. I'm not getting mad at you. I understand why they abandoned it, for because you can quickly calculate huge sums, but I guess it was cumbersome for I guess it was cumbersome for commerce. I don't know, because it couldn't have been cumbersome for commerce. It became cumbersome somehow, but I don't understand. I know that I do understand that the Indians developed the decimal system. The Arabic numerals that we use are actually Indian numerals, Hindi numerals. I do know all of that. But I literally don't. I can't figure it out. I know that I just said that it's like that you said that it's like 100 is like 10/12s, but it's also 120. Oh, it's probably, yeah, that's it. They couldn't do it. You couldn't keep records, and so if you made mistakes, which I've been reading, I read a book. I read the book, uh, uh, Weaver's Scribes and Kings, and in it she tells a story about a scribe who was real bad at math. Yeah, the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so 100 would just be written as 100, but calculating, right. Well, right, but where I get confused is we have 10 numerals. There are 10 symbols for the numbers, and I guess they had 12, right? So it didn't start over at 9. It started over at 13, or at 12, I think. So like we count up 9, and then you go to the next placeholder. They counted up 12. And so I'm not computing it, because 12, I'm thinking of a 12 as a 10 and 2. And 12 to them wouldn't be a 10 plus 2. It would just be 12, where 13 would be 12 plus 1 to them. Right? But if you're saying that they can't, that it was cumbersome to write down. Yeah, if it was cumbersome to write down, that's the problem I have, is that I think about math very much in the writing it down and seeing it in columns. And that's clearly not how they did math. Yeah, you missed a real good one tonight, Rachie. This is this has been real real easy to get enthusiastic about. I'll be honest. It's been real cool. Yeah, they did it on their hands. That I do know. That I do know. And So like if I'm just making up a system, like 2 knuckles is 24. So to them would be like a 2 to me could be like 24, 36, 48 all the way up, right? If I'm even close. Yeah, smart crew. The insomnia crew are smart. Because I'm also forgetting that they didn't have an alphabet system. So their numeral system would also be like their it was like cuneiform. It's not a pictograph system anymore, but it's a syllabic system. Yeah, you can count by yeah, because you can I okay, I can see the practicality. I can see how that can work because you're constantly thinking in multiples. And then India did the base 10. Yeah, and then that because of um, Arabic, because of the Arabic Empire spread throughout the whole world. And the by the late Middle Ages, yeah, that's what's taken over because of the Crusades. Christians went, holy shit, we can suddenly do math because they were using fucking Roman numerals. Yeah, like we were talking, it just happened to be the what was being used for commerce in the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Middle East, and Greco Italy. Yeah. So you're right about that. Arabic absolutely contributed to the spread of worldwide commerce in the Middle Ages. Absolutely. And then France and Scandinavia went a little bit fucking insane. I say that like Portugal. It didn't happen. And like I don't have somebody right now who speaks Portuguese, Spanish, and English because the Iberians went nuts. The Iberians, the Spanish and Portuguese said, "We'll just take all of this, thank you." The way the Portuguese, the way the Portuguese Empire spread is one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. Yeah, I realize that, and that's why I was trying to give you the credit for what your contribution was correct, what you were trying to say, and then I got racist. That's what you were trying to say. Yeah, absolutely. And during the Crusades. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want to understand the history of math, as you have made very evident, you have to understand. You have to understand the Arabic contributions to math. And I wouldn't ever try to take that away. Ever. That's part of why I don't. Like I sit and I'll watch these alternate historians try to argue about um ancient math, and it's just yeah, the place value system is where I realized, even as I was trying to articulate to you what I just cannot understand. I can't get out of the base 10. I think about the base 10 visually. And because I don't know the base 12 characters, I just can't pull my head out of it. And so if I manipulated it, I would understand it, is what you're saying. If you had to use it, you would know how to use it. Yeah, Arabic name Al Khwarizmi. Yeah. Yeah, chemistry, alchemia, from Egypt. Yeah, we have a ton of Arabic and English. Actually, there's a ton of Arabic and French and Spanish, and there's a ton of French and Spanish and commercial English because of the Crusades. The English language didn't participate in the Crusades as much as we like to believe it did. ton of Arabic in the language of science. I don't know if you were here when I pointed it out, but I got really excited when I realized that this book was an Eastern person writing an Aristotelian thought experiment for a 16th century, a Renaissance Italian audience. I thought that was really cool. I got really excited when I realized that's what I was reading. Oh, this is what the Renaissance was actually like. People coming out of the woodwork with old stories that explain how this philosophy that's just coming back into the European languages was thought about. I think that's really cool because I think about and talk to myself all the time about how modern science, like astrophysics, needs better mythologies. It needs better stories for kids to be able to think in terms of the science they're learning at school. Yeah, they translated it and expanded on it, and then they locked it in libraries after about 900. Yeah, we need better stories, and I don't mean like sci-fi adventures. I mean we need better stories. Sherlock Holmes is such a great way to show how deductive reasoning works, and so we need more modern stuff like that, because people like me who like old stories were rare. I was rare. Like, my teachers didn't like it that I liked these old books. They would get fucking annoyed with me. And now as an adult, I realize it's because they probably felt like I was showing them up as an intellectual in some way, but that wasn't what was happening. Millennials, I'm this way with movies. We're cursed with not wanting to go back and look at the art and the culture from previous generations, because there's so much new stuff being made now. And I really do think that's relevant to the story we're reading, because you could have missed this back then if you were trying to get the most recent Arthur stuff or just the most recent Renaissance stuff that was being made. You could have chosen not to listen to this old story from a different language. But that clearly didn't happen if serendipity is a common word in the English language, and I can find this story on whatever wiki I was on, whatever wiki source I was using. That's so cool. I love being in our future. I love being, well, our present. I love being here right now. Yep, yep. And I'm actually about to tuck into bed. Thank you guys. Thank all of you, all 33 of you who liked. Thank all of you who are with me here now. If you haven't liked, make sure you get that hit real quick so that the thank you counts to you. This has been a real breath of fresh air for me. I got to walk home in the beautiful snow. I've got to sit here and watch inches of it accumulate around me without threatening my tent or my safety. The past was the worst. I like that. Yeah, the past was the worst. Thank you so much. I've been really looking forward to the ice and snow. I don't know if all of you have heard me say it, but I've been really looking forward to it because it insulates the inside of the tent. It stays warmer, actually. It's like a little igloo. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for still being here, man. That's really, really fucking cool of you guys. This has been a true honor. It's been a true privilege and just an absolute joy for me. Thank you. Take care of yourselves, all right? Those of you who are supposed to be sleeping, make sure you get your sleep. Those of you who are supposed to be working, make sure that you get everything that you need to get done today. You have strong thoughts about the insulating properties of snow. That's a funny thing to have strong feelings about. It is a funny thing, and I don't mean funny as in weird. It is. It's almost 5. I actually do have to sleep. I want to get up. I got things I want to do tomorrow. Oh, I love you guys dearly. It has been a real joy and privilege to read this story, to share something that I didn't know. I just love reading old books, and I didn't know I was gonna love this story. And just for the future audience, for the replay audience, just a shout out, typical Rach, because I wouldn't even have known this wouldn't have. Absolutely is funny. Absolutely, yeah, and we will talk later. I never would have read this, um, if serendipity hadn't been her favorite word. So big ups to typical Rach, and all of you. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Make sure that you do the things that you got to do today. I'm going to bed. I've been Shaggy. I've been Philalitheia. You keep being cool, because this was cool. And good night, Chris and Dan and everybody else.